Alright, I hope this is working. I hope this doesn't fluke out, because I have had a lot of problems, trying to stream and stuff. The internet sometimes goes up and down. Let me see. Let me check my stats real quick. I hope the audio isn't, super crappy right now. Let's see. Do I have anybody watching? So I don't have anybody watching right now. I might actually have this set up to private, which I don't know if I do or not. Let me give it a little bit of time before I really see what's going on here. Sorry. Let's see. Let me just wait for a little bit. Just wait for a little bit just to see if the thing sets up correctly, I am a little tired right now. I'm kind of in the in my tired stage, or sort of tired phase at this moment in time. But I wanted to do it's been a while since I've made a YouTube video. I know it's been like 6 months or something like that since I've made a YouTube video. Well, only 3 months, actually. Just, only about 3 months since I've made a YouTube video, but it's felt longer. So I'm just here on YouTube. I'm going to do I've been inspired to talk about the movies that I saw of last year. Now, there's a lot of movies I didn't get to, and there was a lot of stuff that came out last year. And stuff that, let's see, I'm still checking. I don't know how we're doing. Is anybody listening, or is it just going to be me? Let's see, we've dropped about, I'm still setting this up, so don't worry, everybody. I'm at 60 frames right now. I don't know why I'm recording at 60 frames, honestly. Again, I'm going to give it a little bit of time. I'm just going to wait out a little bit, just to make sure some things are set up correctly, or some things are, Okay, I don't know why my OBS only shows the one screen. You see, because in order for this to work, I need to have the image adjusted correctly. I don't know why it's not. Let's see, so I put the image of Max right there. I'm just, like I said, I'm just testing this whole thing out, just making sure, okay, so that made it worse. I don't know why it did. I don't understand this. Let me see. I don't know if this browser is gonna, I don't know if this browser is, embedding the images the way I want it to. So I'm just, testing some things out. Don't worry, everybody. So far, right now, it seems like the stream is going okay, as far as, let me see. I probably have it spaced out too much. Let me see if I can, could shrink the screen a little bit. Let's see. Audio mixer, sources, properties. Let's see if I can go to properties. Well, I'm already on streaming right now. Let's see, what can I do here? Because I got to fix this, because it's just the presentation is really, really small. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can shrink it a little bit. Okay, so that makes it bigger. So that makes it a little bigger. I'm just kind of dinking around with everything, making sure that everything, looks good. Hold on a sec. Open Studio. Uh-oh. I have a problem. I'm having a problem right now. YouTube Creator Studio. What the heck is going on here? What in the heck? Never mind. Alright, so I tell you what, I'm going to leave the screen like this for the rest of the stream. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the movies that I watched of 2023. Like I said, it's been a while since I've done a YouTube video and what have you. You know, I'm gonna probably just dive right into it, you know. Starting off with a movie that I didn't even rate because I had absolutely no idea what to rate it, and it's honestly was a movie that really kind of conflicted me because honestly I'm still questioning the existence of this film, and that is Good Burger 2. Now, the first Good Burger isn't like a classic or nothing like that. Like, it's not like one of those movies where like you look at it and you're like, oh wow, this is like the greatest movie ever made. But it's always been sort of like a classic in my eyes, like a childhood classic. It's a movie that I've watched countless times, and I usually deem it as like my go-to favorite Nickelodeon movie. So, you know, as it turns out, when they started, you know, when they were announcing, you know, the sequel, I was just kind of like, okay, well, you know, now that we have, you know, this sequel in production, I mean, what are they going to do with it? In reality, it wasn't really anything that I was that excited for or that interested in, you know. I'm still trying to get the screen adjusted. I don't understand this. I don't understand why the screen is so small. Let's see, I don't know what to do about the size. Uh-oh, I think I locked it. There we go. Let's see if I can shrink it a little bit, because the screen's just like really big. Like the size, it's just like really big. I don't know why the screen, I just can't get any smaller. I'm really trying to get it, you know, smaller. Trying to get it. There we go. There we go. That's what I want. That is exactly what I want, people. Okay. I finally figured it out. I just figured out Blue's Clues, ladies and gentlemen. Just figured out Blue's Clues. Okay, I should get a medal. But that is exactly the way that I want it. Just like that. Okay. Now we're in good hands. Now we can resume. But yeah, Good Burger 2. So really just looking at it, you know, just looking at this poster and just looking at the trailer and stuff, it's like you just kind of know what you're getting yourself into, and basically it was just exactly what I expected. It didn't really stand out, and it didn't really do anything, you know, that really upset me or made me angry or anything like that. It was just sort of like, you know, what you would expect. The thing is, I look at this and I'm just like, you know, there really was no reason to make it. There were a couple of amusing moments in it, you know, and it was, I guess in reality it was kind of nice to see his characters again, but this is one of those things that would have worked better as like a Super Bowl commercial or something like that. You know, I don't really think you really needed to go the effort or the extra mile to make this movie. I mean, because sometimes it's like, okay, we get stuff like Dumb and Dumber 2, right? Which Dumb and Dumber 2 is not a great movie, but I kind of accepted it because I was like, you know what? There were a couple of moments that made me laugh, and there were a couple of amusing moments. And that's what this was. It's kind of on par with Dumb and Dumber 2. So yeah, Good Burger 2 is a movie that I didn't really rank on anything. I didn't even rate it on my Letterboxd. I just sort of was like, you know what? It was what it was. But I'm going to dive right into my number one worst movie of 2023. And I don't even know if you want to even call this a movie, because it technically wasn't sold as one. And that movie is going to be the Netflix interactive film Choose Love. So this was a big waste of my time, a big waste of my hour and 30 minutes or whatever, however long it was. It wasn't that long. But the thing is it's not just the fact that it's an interactive movie. It's the fact that this is a very gimmicky and incredibly toothless and pathetic movie. It's almost like an absolute, like, nothing film. It makes a lot of those Lifetime and Hallmark movies look like masterpieces in comparison. This is such a, like, forgettable and just, like, really, like incredibly, I'm you know what, I'm gonna cuss. It's a really shitty, like, really, really shitty, incredibly watered down, like, game or whatever it is. And you can look at something like this and be like, oh, well, it's kind of like those Sega CD and like 3DO games or whatever it is. But even a lot of those have a lot of like pretty interesting production values to them. And some of those are like so bad that they're like funny or that they're fun, you know, like Sewer Shark and Night Trap and all that stuff. But this shit was like, it not only was it not fun, but it was just incredibly boring. And honestly, if I was in control of this movie, I would have, if I were actually in control of Laura Marano, I wouldn't have had her go out with any of these three guys. at all. And they encourage you, oh, well, you got to play it again. And it's like, well, do I really want to play this again? Because I like this whole time I was watching this, I was like, am I really sitting on the edge of my seat just to see Laura Marano hook up with any of these people? And to tell you the truth, I wasn't. I wasn't. I thought this was an absolute, waste of my time. And it was just incredibly, like, pathetic just as a movie on its own. Even if you didn't have the whole, like, game aspect of it, it's just a really, really shitty movie. Like, it is really poorly put together, incredibly boring, and just really, really pathetic. I know a lot of people probably won't even put this on their worst list because a lot of people won't even count it as a movie. But like I said, this was my least favorite thing I had to sit through this year, bar none. And then we got Freelance. And I know what you guys are saying, like, hey, there was a movie with John Cena that I didn't hear about. Well, yeah, this movie came out in 2,000 theaters, and I think it opened up to, like, 8th place, and sure enough, it like, bombed. Part of that was because this came out during the writer's strike. First of all, I couldn't believe that this actually came out to theaters. I rented this shit on VOD for $19.99, and I would love to get my $19.99 back, or even like a residual for having to sit through this absolutely boring waste of time. This incredibly boring ass action thriller that feels like it was made by an AI, and it's directed by the guy who did Taken. And the action sequences are so bad. They look like it has the scale of those like Tubi TV Steven Seagal movies, or some of those Bruce Willis ones, where the action is so bad you literally, like, you've seen, like, you can watch like an episode of like a CW show that has better action than the action in this. The action is horrible. The comedy, I mean, it's supposed to be an action comedy, but the comedy isn't even there. It's like you got Alison Brie in this movie and Christian Slater's in this, and it's like the most boring and like forgettable film you could ever think of. Now the thing is, this movie, I only watched this movie because I saw on Rotten Tomatoes this had a very low score. And in my head I was like, well, this cannot be worse than Playing with Fire. And I'll tell you one thing, the nicest thing I could say about this movie is that this is not John Cena's worst movie. Like, compared to Playing with Fire, I would much rather watch Freelance than Playing with Fire. That is just how bad Playing with Fire is, or how bad I thought it was. But I will say this, Playing with Fire was so bad that I still remember it. Freelance, I'm struggling to even talk about it right now because of how forgettable it really was, and how just, like, toothless it was. It's just, like, incredibly pathetic. Like I said, just imagine if this ever pops up on Tubi or Freevee, don't even waste your time. Don't even watch it. John Cena, I'm not the hugest John Cena fan, but he's been in better movies. I liked him in that Suicide Squad movie, and he's done really good work on the Peacemaker show, but like, this movie really just completely is a complete waste of your time and everybody else's time. And don't even be like hoodwinked into being like, well, it's got Alison Brie in it. It's like, look, Alison Brie's been in a lot of better stuff. I don't even know why she's even in this, actually, to tell you the truth. It's kind of a shame. All right, this next movie is going to give me a lot of hate, maybe, because I looked at my Letterboxd stats for the end of the year, and turns out I rated this movie lower than a lot of other people, or the average rating, and that is Trolls Band Together. I couldn't stand this movie. All right, I couldn't stand this movie at all. The thing is, I'm not the hugest Trolls fan to begin with. The first movie I thought was at least moderately mediocre. Like, it was fine. It was above average, right? Now, Trolls World Tour was kind of a guilty pleasure. I'll be honest. I like the animation in it. I actually like the song at the end. And I really like the addition of some of the characters, like the Kelly Clarkson troll. And I really like the villain, Queen Barb, in that movie. So what do? They do a third one. And let's not have any of those characters that we met in the last one come back. You don't get Delta. You don't get Queen Barb. Nope. Let's introduce some new characters that are absolutely incredibly bland, and let's do the same generic ass DreamWorks we gotta like we have like a lost sibling subplot that I've seen a million freaking times. You know, Shrek 2 and How to Train Your Dragon 2 is the same shit. Where there was this, I was like your relative or something, and you know Poppy's got like this sister, and it's like it's the same shit that I've seen so many times with these DreamWorks movies. It's like they come up with like absolutely nothing new in these darn sequels sometimes, and it's just so like ridiculous. And I don't know what it was with this movie, but Princess Poppy in this movie was incredibly annoying. Like, she reminded me of like Lauren Graham in those later seasons of Gilmore Girls when the writers left, and you started getting in new writers who wrote the show, and it's just like the writers just like did not know how to write Lauren Graham's character. So every time when Lauren Graham's talking, it's just like this really like rambling dialogue and just consistent, like the stuff that character would like never say. That's what Princess Poppy in this one reminded me of. Just incredibly annoying. I didn't care for any of the musical numbers. The nicest thing I could say about it, the animation is really impressive. I did really like the animation. I thought it had a very beautiful animation design. It like I like the part where the characters, they enter this world where the characters are made of like yarn, and they look like Dr. Seuss characters, and I really like the design of them. That's one of the takeaways I'll say about this movie, is the animators did a really good job at making some really at doing a really good job at the animation. But the story was the same story as the other Trolls movies. It's like, oh well, there's a troll that gets kidnapped and they have to go on this adventure to find it because the villains are harvesting the power. It just really was like a waste of my time. I saw this in the theater the day it came out. I was in an empty theater, which rarely happens, by the way. This is coming from a guy that saw Playmobil the movie, a movie that did worse than this, in a theater that was not empty. So to see this in an empty theater and in the afternoon, the day it comes out, in 3D, made me feel incredibly embarrassed. And I am a 26-year-old man, and boy, is that one of the most embarrassing film moments I've had ever. Man, I saw this because, like I said, like I like Trolls World Tour, and I was like, well, hey, this one might actually be, fingers crossed, a pretty solid film. And it wasn't. It was just another, this movie, the reason why I dislike this film is not because it's annoying. It reminds me of sequels like Medea's Witness Protection or like Transformers Last Night, where it feels like they did the bare minimum as far as the story is concerned. And it's like, let's just like I said, do the bare minimum, because people are stupid enough to actually go and see shit like this. And I don't know. I mean, I know there's people that like this film, and that's fine. I could not vibe with it at all. And DreamWorks, I mean, there's another DreamWorks movie I'm going to talk about later on that's not on my worst list, but like, I don't know. I'm a little concerned about DreamWorks, especially because like this is coming after Puss in Boots. They're sitting on a high cloud, and it's like, you know, they're performing better than Disney in a lot of areas, and it's like, but then they do movies like this, and it's like, man, like what happened? Like, give me more Puss in Boots and the bad guys. It's like, I don't want this, you know. We got Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This poster basically says everything that is wrong with this movie. In fact, I'm kind of amazed that the marketing team actually thought this was a good idea, you know, to put a poster out like this, you know. But again, like, this should tell you just about everything. You know, having to see this in the theater, in the big screen, was just enough for me to put this on a worst list. This movie, the biggest problem with this movie reminded me of Men in Black 2, where it's a movie that feels like it's on autopilot. Like, it almost feels like it just has to sort of do something and then just stop. And it doesn't matter if any of it makes any sense. It doesn't matter if any of the actors even know what's going on. It just is so, like, jumbled into, like, you know, just bad idea after bad idea. Like, for instance, I mean, we introduced King in this movie by Jonathan Majors. Now, here's the thing. I haven't watched the Loki show. I know a lot of people say that he's great in the Loki show. But I'm going to be honest, judging from this movie, you know, I thought Kang was a very underwhelming villain. Because the thing is if you really think about it, like, if Ant-Man and his family didn't even go to the quantum realm, like, this whole movie would have just, like, never happened. Ever. But Ant-Man, like, his daughter starts screwing stuff up. And, dude, Catherine Newton, I like Catherine Newton, but I really was kind of mad that they replaced the original actress that played Cassie Lang, and I'm talking about the one from the first two movies with Catherine Newton. And it's just, I feel, and again, sans the Men in Black 2 comparison, how Men in Black 2 wasted Rosario Dawson, this movie wastes Catherine Newton. I felt like Catherine Newton, if I was Catherine Newton, I'd be pissed as fuck if, like, you came up to me, if all I did was just sock around this offspring of Mr. Electric and Lord Farquaad that, like I said, just having a look at this. I mean, and the special effects, the green screen in this movie reminded me of the green screen in Rat Race. That scene where Seth Green's riding that cow, that's what it reminded me of. Like, really? And look, Rat Race is like a dumb comedy from the 2000s. Like, dude, like, I don't expect those kind of special effects in a multi-million-dollar Marvel movie with, just underwhelming special effects, really flat green screen. A lot of people compare it to Spy Kids. I mean, it looks like I said, Spy Kids, Little Nicky, like whatever, like movie from the 2000s. And like I said, I don't expect that until 2023, with these kind of special effects. So yeah, I was really let down by this because the first two Ant-Man movies, the thing about Marvel movies for me is I feel like with Marvel trilogies, they'll do a really good first one, a pretty good second one, but then they'll do a really good third one. You have like Spider-Man No Way Home and Iron Man 3. And there's another third Marvel movie I'll talk about later on. But then you get this, and it's just like, well, what happened? It's just, a lot of things happen. And I don't hate this movie, but this movie was just a big letdown. Like I said, it just felt like a movie that just sort of had to do things, and it didn't matter if any of them made any sense. It's just like, let's just keep doing things, and let's just hope that all this works out at the end. And it's like, no, it really didn't. I guess while we're on the superhero films, The Flash. Yes, this is The Flash, starring Ezra Miller, which should already say just about just about most of what I want to say about this film. I know I dogged on the special effects in Quantumania, but this movie's special effects look like Polar Express 95% of the time. Like, really underwhelming CGI in this film. Just really bad special effects. The fact that you get two Ezra Millers, and the thing about Ezra Miller is, like, I know, all that bad stuff, that dude's done, but the thing is, like, Ezra Miller has never proved to me to be leading man material in a movie like this, you know what I mean? And that's really the big problem with it, and now that you get two of them, and there's, like, a dual role, and it's just like, oh my god, like, just please, it was really annoying to me. I just found the role itself to just be really grating. And, I didn't care for all the cameos. I think that the cameos was really what pushed me to really dislike this film, was all of the really uncanny CGI cameos with the dead-eyed Superman and, like, the the Batman, or not the Batman, the Nicolas Cage cameo and all that stuff. It was such a, like, forced, and, like, it just felt really studio heavy, like the way that they did it. It was just such a, like, forced and just corporate movie that really, at the end of the day, I haven't even thought much about after it's come out. I mean, like, I saw it in the theater, or no, I didn't see it in the theater. I skipped this movie intentionally, and I rented it, and honestly, I haven't thought about it much after it's come out, It didn't make me mad. It was just one of those things where you watch it, and it's just like, well, it was what it was, I guess, which wasn't very good. Long story short, Daddy Daycare still remains the best movie with The Flash in it, okay? Because The Flash just wanted to be Tony. And I'll take that any day of the week than I will what Warner Brothers has done here. Screw you, David Zaslav. Strays could have been a fun concept, executed as a one-joke movie. It's like, oh, you get it? The dogs say fuck. The dogs cuss. And that's it, And it's just like, yeah, but you could do a lot more with that, I mean, it's bad when, like, I'd rather be watching, like, Beverly Hills Chihuahua than watch this again. I saw this in the theater. I remember I walked down, I had a migraine after this movie. It just was one of those things where it was like, I compared it to Sausage Party, But I don't know, Sausage Party, at least I remember, had some moments of creativity in it, and this one just felt like it just did like the same joke over and over. It's like, oh, you get it, the dogs say fuck, and it's like they could have done so much more with this visually and creatively. Like I feel like if this had like an A24, or this had like a Adult Swim behind it, and some really creative minds behind it, this could have really stood out. But instead, like I said, it's just a one-joke premise film. And, you know, there are a couple of things in it that I liked. Like, Jamie Foxx does the voice of the one dog here, Bug. And I like Jamie Foxx in this movie. I thought Jamie Foxx did a really good job. But, like I said, it was kind of let down. It was just like a one-joke premise comedy where it's just like, oh, the dogs cuss. And I'm like, well, you know, dogs cussing is funny, but I'm like, you got to do more than that. And then it just was like, kind of mean-spirited and on the nose with some of the subject matter about abuse and neglecting, and I was just like, I don't know, like, this movie is getting way too, I don't know, it's getting way too, a little, I don't want to say personal, but it's getting a little too heavy with the subject matter about, like, abandoning dogs and stuff, and it's just like, ugh, like, it's like, I don't want that in this, like, raunchy comedy. It's just like, it's just, this movie did not earn that, you know, heart. It's, like I said, just a one-joke comedy that just felt like it was, you know, it didn't really have much outside of its 2-minute trailer, and that's a shame, really. Spy Kids Armageddon. Here's the thing. I was kind of enjoying this movie for the first hour until it completely rips off Jumanji. The first hour of it isn't great, but honestly, the Spy Kids movies aren't like God tier or nothing like that. I'll tell you one thing. I rewatched both of them after the first two after I saw this, or after I watched this, and I'll tell you one thing. They're really just like, they're not really as good as I remember them. You know what I mean? But they're still fun. So when I saw a lot of people on Letterboxd giving this like a 1.5 star, I was like, oh, I expect the worst. And to be honest, it wasn't like the worst thing I ever saw, but it was just one of those things where it's just like, you know, it doesn't appeal to me, and I guess, like, if you're younger than me, it'll appeal to you, but, like, I don't know, it didn't really make me mad or nothing like that, but like I said, it felt like they just ripped off Jumanji, like, and I'm not talking the Robin Williams one, I'm talking the Jack Black one, like, it's the same thing, where it's like, oh, there's 4 people, and, you know, they have to, defeat, like, this big monster or something like that. It's nowhere near as good as those Jumanji movies, and I feel like they could have done something a little bit more with the story, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I really expected out of Spy Kids Armageddon. I guess I was just surprised they even made it, like Robert Rodriguez even made it. And Robert Rodriguez, I mean, like, God bless him. I mean, he's in my opinion, one of my favorite filmmakers. You know, I love how he's able to he has a really vivid imagination, but he's really smart at how he approaches budget and how he approaches visuals, you know, because one of the things I really admire about, like, the Spy Kids movies is that they're really cheap films, and he really is able to bring, like, because I remember as a kid watching Spy Kids 2, and I fell for it. I was really invested in it, and now I look at it, and it's a green screen, but, like, I still have those memories of, like, watching it as a kid, being like, wow, this is, like, really creative, and I really like this, you know? Nowadays, like I said, I see a green screen, but, like, you know, I feel like the charm is still there. And Robert Rodriguez, you know, like I said, I feel like as a filmmaker, he is very intelligible and very, you know, I do admire his work, but I just wasn't really behind Spy Kids Armageddon all that much. I didn't hate it or nothing like that, but it's just one of those things where it was over, you know? Five Nights at Freddy's. I might get some hate on this. I thought this, okay, here's the thing. I've never played any of the games. I don't know diddly squat about the lore at all. So watching this movie, I was actually kind of confused, and really the big problem with this movie is that this movie's way too long. I think this should have been like an 80-minute movie, not a 2-hour movie. You know, I liked the stuff that they were trying to do with Josh Hutcherson's character, but I felt like the whole thing where he's falling asleep was just really just something that didn't feel like it fit the movie at all. And the ending with Matthew Lillard, like, I don't know what in the hell they were trying to do. I've talked to some Five Nights at Freddy's fans, and they've tried to explain it to me, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell this means, you know? I was like, I don't know anything about this lore at all. And, you know, here's the thing, like, people are trying to be like, well, no, you know, you don't get it, and blah, 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 and it's like, well, yeah, I don't, but, like, I kind of need to know a little bit, I guess. But here's the thing. I shouldn't have to know too much of that to enjoy a film like this, you know? The animatronics were kind of nice. I will say they did some nice things with the animatronics. But other than that, I was just kind of like, I just didn't know what was going on. I will say, this was my first time listening to that Living Tombstone song, and I really liked that song, but boy, was that song stuck in my head like for like a week after I saw this movie. So yeah, I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's, I mean, I know people out there love it, and that's fine. I just didn't know what to make of it, honestly, and I guess if they make a sequel, they might improve some of the flaws I had, but I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to see this being a franchise, but because like I said, I didn't hate it, but I just didn't know what was going on. I just watched it, and I was just like, I didn't know. I just didn't know much about it. Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, the most forgettable movie probably of all time. This movie, let me tell you something. I've seen a lot of videos about box office flops, and nobody even brings up this movie at all. Nobody. Like, this film came out, I saw it in the theater because I was killing time, and here's the thing. It's not a horrible movie. It is harmless, but man, is it generic as hell. This is one of the most generic-ass movies I've seen probably in a while. And it's coming from DreamWorks, who usually avoids a lot of the generic stuff, or at least like they'll do something that's so weird that you can't even really get mad. Like Boss Baby, it's like, I'll say this about Boss Baby, it's not generic. This was just really generic, and I mean, it is harmless. But the thing about this movie is I was actually enjoying this movie for most of it until the last act, where they do a really shitty villain twist, and I was just like, oh great, you completely ruined a lot of the goodwill I had towards Ruby Gillman. It just felt like it like cobbled together a lot of things from like, properties and other shows. I remember seeing the trailer for this, and I remember being like, this looks like a cross between like Star versus the Forces of Evil, and maybe a little bit like SpongeBob, but I don't know. I don't know. It's just so darn generic. I was like, man, honestly, again, I don't remember a lot about this movie after it was out. And, I know there's people that like it, and there are people that actually seem to really enjoy it, and that's fine. Because, like I said, it is a harmless movie. I'm not going to sit here and, like, talk shit about it too much. Some of the voice acting was fine. The music was all right. But, like I said, it just did not stand out on its own. This just looks like something you watch on Netflix. And the fact I saw it in the theater was just enough for me to, just be like, it was what it was. Little Mermaid, I talked about this a little bit when I did that podcast, and boy, is this a movie I've pretty much already forgot about. This movie is so forgettable, I might as well be talking about A Plum Summer with Henry Winkler instead. Here's the thing. Haley Bailey, I thought she did good in the movie, but really, this was just another generic Disney remake for me. I mean, I'll say this, it wasn't like... I really did not care for The Lion King at all from a few years ago. So compared to that, this movie is a vast improvement in my opinion. But like, it's just still, just very like generic and just sort of what you'd expect. And that sucks. I mean, like, you look at a movie like this that cost all this money, and it's just like, it came out, and it made its money, I guess. Well, it broke even. And that's it. It's like there's not much to it. The only thing I remember about this movie is something I really didn't like, and that's that Awkwafina song that was so terrible I wanted to stick a fork in my eye. All right? And speaking of Awkwafina, Renfield. Good concept. Really good cast. Besides Awkwafina, we got Nicolas Cage, Nicholas Hoult, Ben Schwartz. It's like, well, how'd this movie go wrong? I'll tell you why. They made it an action movie. Instead of like taking this concept about Dracula and Dracula's apprentice, let's just make it this really generic action movie, that the kind of action movie that you'd see in like, this feels like one of those movies you watch on TBS at like 8 in like the morning or something like that. It feels like a TBS movie. And I feel like that's going to be shit. Sorry, my brain's fried right now. I'm just rambling on. But it feels like a TBS movie. It feels like that kind of movie that's just going to play ad nauseum on television. What I didn't like about it, really bad CGI, really terrible editing in the action sequences. And, it kind of started out interesting, but it just wasn't all that funny either. It was just like, you sit there and you watch it and you're like, well, Nicolas Cage is good in it, but the movie and again, speaking of the Aquafina thing, it's like, well, let's have this subplot where like Aquafina has to track down this like cartel, and you know you got Ben Schwartz in the movie, and it's like, well, you know, again, waste of Ben Schwartz and waste of Aquafina, and then Aquafina has like this romance with like Nicholas Hoult. I don't hate this movie. I know some people like it, and that's fine. I don't, like I said, it's not like one of the worst I've ever seen, but it was a letdown. It was pretty mediocre. Nicest thing I'll say about it, it's better than Morbius, and it was better than The Invitation that came out last year, which were two really shitty vampire movies I sat through in the theater. So, you know, compared to those, like Renfield's like a total winner, I guess. Speaking of another letdown, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I really liked the first Shazam. I thought the first Shazam stood out amongst the very like dreary and sometimes underwhelming, you know, DC universe and stuff. But this sequel, I know the sequel was littered with like production problems, like you know Dwayne Johnson was like gonna have Black Adam in it, I think, or something like that. Or Black Adam was supposed to be in the Shazam sequel, and then Dwayne Johnson did the movie, and it didn't do well. So now you get this, and it just sort of feels like a hapless sequel, you know? Like, it just sort of feels like it was made by, you know, it's just sort of made just to get by. And, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a horrible movie, and I feel like the director did what he could with this film, but I just feel like no matter what they could have done, it just was a very, you know, it just was a very, like, movie. You know, I remember I sat there in the theater and I was just really, it just felt like it just sort of was just like trailing by as I was watching it. Like, you know what I mean? It just sort of like felt like it was just sort of flying by like a train that passes by, as opposed to really sitting down and consuming and watching it, you know? You know what I mean? And I mean, there just really wasn't a lot that stood out to me. I mean, the performances were fine. The special effects were good. Like I said, the director, I felt, did what he could. Did that just because, like, he only did what he could with this. And at the end of the day, you know, you get a movie that, again, isn't one of the worst I've seen or nothing like that, but, you know, it is what it is. I mean, it's just like, you know, I'm barely struggling to talk about it, man. It's just like one of those things where I'm just like, what can I say about it? I mean, like I said, I didn't hate it. It's just like but it's not like I hated it, but I didn't really like it all that much either. It's just like it hits that very mediocre curve. You know what I mean? Where it's not even like above average. It just sort of is like, it's not even really average. It's just sort of in that weird corner in place. You know, and it's just like, man, you know. But yeah, here's the thing. I'm gonna take like a 5 minute break, and I promise you guys I'm gonna be right back. So sit back and relax. I'm having a really great time right now. Like I say, I got some stuff to do. I'm gonna take like 5 minutes, so I'll be back here hopefully at like 5 minutes. So everybody just sit back or do something else real quick, get a drink, and I'll catch you guys in a minute. Let's see, can I put this on pause? All right, I'm back. A dinosaur story. Going on to the next film. Hold on a second. Let me make sure everything's back in order. We are back. Okay. All right. So this one came out this year. We got Alice Darling, a movie that honestly would have been pretty good, but it feels more like a TV movie for a lot of it. Like it just feels like a Lifetime original, and I mean, it has a really good performance by Anna Kendrick, who can really do no wrong, honestly. I mean, Anna Kendrick, at this point has definitely proven herself to be a very versatile actress, and I like seeing her in a role like this, but I just feel like the movie itself, actually, and a lot of times I complain about movies being too long. The movie is too short. It clocks in at like 80 minutes, and like, one of the things that really bugged me about this movie is that there was like a subplot about a missing girl that like doesn't get resolved at the end of it. And it's one of those things where I sit there and I watch it and I'm just like, well, it just felt like that subplot was just a big waste of time. I did like the scenes of her trying to rekindle, her friendship with her friends. But again, I feel like a lot of that stuff was just, like I said, because the movie was so short, you really didn't get a lot of time to know these people, and there's way too much exposition for me to really kind of, for me to really get, invested into these characters. I mean, it wasn't a bad movie or anything like that, but it was a bit of a letdown. I wish it was just a little more stronger than what it was. Especially given the performance by Anna Kendrick, that again I feel like really elevates a lot of this film. But again, it sort of just feels a lot like a Lifetime movie, especially given its very thematic content. Then we got Wish. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I saw this the Thanksgiving Day, and I don't remember really anything about it. I put this here because I gave it a 3 on my Letterboxd, but I really don't remember a lot about it. There was nothing that really made me mad, and there was nothing that really made me really like it that much. I was let down by the animation. I'll be honest, this poster kind of makes the animation look a lot more, exciting and inviting than it really is. The animation style was really weird. And I can get past the weird animation style, but the story just didn't really stick out, and the characters didn't stick out, and the songs didn't really stick out. Here's the thing, when it comes out on Disney Plus, I expect, the masses to lean one way or the other, because I've heard some people really like it, and then there's some people that didn't really care for it. I don't know, I'm just kind of in the middle on this one. A little bit of a letdown, honestly, but it is a letdown. I won't go as far to say I, disliked it, really, but it's just one of those things where it's just like, man, I'm struggling to remember it. Fast X, I liked some of this, I guess. I mean, here's the thing about this movie. I saw this movie in 4DX, where the seats move and they jitter around and, they swing, like they do all this crazy stuff. And I had a lot of fun on the 4DX experience. It felt like that scene in the Mr. Bean movie where he's on that virtual roller coaster or whatever it was, and he messes around with it. So I had a lot of fun on the 4DX. The movie itself is one of the weaker Fast and the Furious movies. I remember the editing and some of the special effects were really uncanny. Just a lot of that stuff wasn't very good. But I remember I still had some fun with it. But again, it was just I don't know, it's just sort of a mixed bag. A lot of it, honestly. Jason Momoa, he stood out as the villain, but that was kind of the best part of the movie, really, was Jason Momoa. And I don't know if they're still going to do a trilogy after this. I think that's just a lot, that's just a real tall order to really get a trilogy out of this. I mean, we're at the 10th movie. You got to kind of, wrap some things up, and I just feel like this one just, it's kind of one of the weaker of the Fast and Furious movies. And the one actress in it, I forget that actress's name. I don't know if she's on one of these posters here. But that one actress that was in it that they introduced was that character's name was, I think that character was Isabel or something like that. That actress I really like. She was in the Suicide Squad, the James Gunn one, as the Ratcatcher. And I really liked her, and she gets barely any screen time in it. And that was a big letdown, because I've seen her in some other things, and it's man, they just did absolutely nothing with that actress. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I remember it was sort of unnecessary as a movie. I sort of equated it to a fanfic. That's what it just, to me, just kind of felt like. It just felt like, hey, Crystal Skull didn't do very well, or Crystal Skull wasn't well received, So let's do like another Indiana Jones, but this time Indy's like 80 years old, and he's got like a goddaughter with him. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it was what it was. I mean, it's hard to capture the spirit of the original Spielberg films. That's just real hard thing to do. But like, I mean, this movie wasn't like bad. Like, I didn't dislike it. I still found myself enjoying some of it. Because some of the set pieces were, pretty amusing, and, it was nice to see Harrison Ford at least one more time doing Indiana Jones, but at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, it's just like, it just doesn't compare to, like, the other Indiana Jones. Like, when, I don't know, like, I remember walking out of the theater, and I was just thinking about, like, my favorite Indiana Jones is, Last Crusade, and I was just thinking about Last Crusade, like, the beginning of that movie with River Phoenix, and it's just like, man, like, it just doesn't compare to, like, the last two Indiana Jones. And Crystal Skull gets a lot of dump. I'm okay. Like, I'm kind of okay with Crystal Skull. Like, honestly, this and Crystal Skull to me are kind of like, hand in hand. Like, Crystal Skull I have a little bit of fondness for because I did see it in the theater when I was a kid. And, that was the first movie I saw of the Indiana Jones. But, I mean, like, but also I will say Crystal Skull at the very least, I did like the action in that one just a little bit better than the action set pieces here in Dial of Destiny. But Dial of Destiny, not a terrible film. The Marvels. I wasn't big on Captain Marvel. Dare I say I like this one just a little more than Captain Marvel. It wasn't like a great movie by any means. Really, the movie is just all over the place with the story. I mean, the movie just really didn't make a lot of sense to me. Kind of like Five Nights at Freddy's, where I was just kind of lost. I was just like, I didn't watch that Miss Marvel show, so I was just kind of like, I don't really know what's going on. And I mean, for this movie to do as poorly as it did, kind of makes sense. I mean, the worst part about it, like, a lot of it just looked really cheap. Like, some of the costumes look really cheap in this movie. I don't know why. The special effects weren't that terrible. And the movie was, like, really short. Like, it was, like, an hour and 45 minutes, which it was pretty surprising for a movie like this. And this movie was probably littered with a lot of bad things before it came out. And, I know Disney's in a rough area. I didn't hate it. I was just like, you know what? It's 45 minutes. It's an hour and 45 minutes. It's like, it has enough action that kept me a little entertained. But I also feel like this one was targeted a lot more to the younger demographic of MCU fans. Like, I felt like this one was targeted to kids a lot more than, like, the older MCU fans. And they were trying to get them excited for this. And again, when this comes out to Disney Plus, you'll probably see a lot of people saying good things or bad things about it. So, they'll definitely make what they will about the Marvels. But again, like, seeing it in the theaters was just kind of a, it's just kind of a waste, honestly. Candy Can Lane. I thought I was going to hate this movie. I remember, let me show you this poster right here. Let me just show you this poster, because this was definitely enough for me to be like, to swear off this movie. Just look at that poster. I looked at this poster and I was like, boy, this looks like a big old pile of shit. I went ahead and watched it out of my own charging, because I think, I listened to the Double Toaster review, and they were slightly positive on it. So I was like, you know what? I'll check it out. And tell you the truth, it wasn't that bad. It had some really, I was definitely surprised at how creative the movie was and how, like, clever some of the ideas were, even though it's basically just like a Christmas version of Jumanji, and this time the Robin Williams Jumanji, but it was still kind of fun just what some of the stuff they did with it. Now, the movie's problem is that it's way too long and the subplots are incredibly generic in it. Like, there's a subplot I think about, like, Eddie Murphy's daughter getting into school or something like that you've seen a million times. But dare I say I had fun with this. I was not expecting to come out of it having at least some fun with it. I was expecting to just sit there and be like, God, this movie sucks balls. But no, this actually got to me a little bit, And I really loved, and they don't show you this on any of the posters, I love the porcelain dolls. I love the animation. I love those characters. I love the way that the animation was done. So I did enjoy some things out of it. But again, it really suffers from a really bad length. It's 2 hours long when it did not need to be 2 hours. And some of the jokes don't work. There's a lot of hit or miss things in it. And, it does some of those repetitive things I can't stand in comedies, But other than that, I still thought this was mildly amusing for what it was. Not like one of Eddie Murphy's best, but dare I say it was actually kind of a good time. I'm not going to lie. Migration, I'll be honest, I was a little let down by this movie because I really like Super Mario, which I'll talk about later. I know I did that YouTube review on it, but like, I just felt like the big problem with this movie is that the animation I really liked. I love the design of the ducks. I think they have the really like good design, but I just felt like the movie itself, it just kind of felt like a hybrid of like Bluey, like the way that the family like is sort of the family dynamic reminded me a lot like Bluey. It just had that same sort of like dynamic to it a little bit, like the way that the kids interact and the way that the mom interacts. It just reminded me of like Bluey a little bit. I also gotta tell you that I found the dad, was it Mac? I found this character a little annoying. Like, I understand he's like overprotective and stuff, but he just kind of got on my nerves. Like, and it reminded me of Finding Nemo, but Finding Nemo that works because in Finding Nemo you understand right from the beginning why Marlin is overprotective of Nemo because like he lost his wife and all of like all of his children except Nemo, so that makes sense in Finding Nemo why Marlin was so overprotective. But Matt just got on my damn nerves. I'm like, if he had like OCD or something, that I would understand, but like he's just such an annoying character after a while. I'm just like, man. And even the mom is like, you know, like the mom is way more energetic and, you know, happy about her family going on an adventure, and I'm just like, man. What it kind of boiled down to for me with this movie was, I remember walking out of the theater and I was like, okay, so I know the mom's name is Pam, the daughter's name is Gwen, but I was like, well, what the hell was the son's name? Like, I just didn't even remember it. And sure enough, I had to look at the IMDb and find out it was just Dax. And I think, like, just not knowing the character name at the end of the film was like, man, this movie just doesn't have that much longevity. Now look, it's not bad. There are amusing things about it. Like I said, the animation's nice, but to me, it just felt like a hybrid of Bluey and like, it reminded me a lot like Rio 2. Not Rio 2, but like the actual, Rio. You know, it reminded me of that too. And I'm like, for what it was, you know, I guess if your options are Wish and Trolls band together, I guess this is like the best of the worst. But like I said, I just can't help but feel just a little let down because, like I said, Super Mario, like after seeing what Illumination did with that, I was like, wow, like I can't wait for the next thing. And this is our next movie out the gate. And it's fine. It's fine. It's just that I just feel like this movie isn't going to have that huge of a longevity. Like, it's just going to be one of those things you put on and it's like, yeah, it's cool. You know, the animation's nice, really colorful. But at the end of the day, it was just kind of like, it was what it was. All right, so let's see, continuing on, we have a movie that I guarantee you nobody's heard of at all. It's called Tripped Up. So this movie stars Ariel Winter, as you can see here on the poster. This movie is a road trip comedy, and I rented it on Vudu, I think like the week it came out or something like that. It's fine for what it is. It suffers from tonal and pacing issues. I mean, it's an hour and 35-minute movie that felt like it went on longer than it needed to, but I found myself kind of enjoying it. For the most part. I wasn't expecting it to be like a... This movie's not rated, but if it was rated, it'd be rated R, because there's a lot of F-bombs and cussing in it and, like, you know, sex jokes and stuff like that. The other actress in it, this actress right here is Leah Lewis. And if you don't know who she is, she's the voice of Ember in Elemental. So the whole time I'm sitting there watching this movie, I just think of Ember from Elemental saying, you know, the F word and saying, you know, all these like dick jokes and stuff. So, you know, at least I got enjoyment out of the movie just for that alone. Then we got Champions. This movie would have been so much better if it were an hour and 45 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes. This did not need to be 2 hours. It's a charming comedy. I liked Woody Harrelson's performance. I loved his relationship with the players, you know. But this did not need to be 2 hours. I mean, it's just this movie. If it were just shorter, I probably would have put it higher. But like as the longer it just went on, the more I was just kind of like, man, it's just this movie kind of needs to move along. And the big problem with it is that it's your same, you know, generic basketball comedy. Like, you know it. Like as soon as this movie starts, you know exactly where it's going to go, and you know what? It just goes exactly where it's going to go. But you know, I still was charmed by it. You know, in spite of its long length, I still was charmed by it. You know, charmed by it, and it's probably one of the better Farley Brothers movies I've seen in quite a long time, honestly. I'd say it's better than Green Book, in my opinion. In my honest opinion. Then we have 65. So this movie, I saw in the theater when it came out. I saw it because I thought the trailer looked interesting. And I know this movie has a lot of bad reviews. I had some fun with it. It's not a great movie at all. But here's the thing. It was 90 minutes, and it kind of just gave me what I came in for, was some dinosaurs. I feel like some of the stuff that was lacking in that, like, Jurassic World movie, with the dinosaurs and stuff, was kind of in this one. And I know this isn't a great movie. It's really stupid, but I don't know, man. I mean, if you told me that there was a movie with Kylo Ren and Sasha from Barbie, and they're just going around killing dinosaurs and stuff, I'll take it. I'll take it. And it's like 90 minutes long. I'll just take it, for what it was. Again, not a great movie. I mean, the biggest problem with the movie is the dinosaurs die way too easy. Like, Adam Driver, most of the movie just goes around and shoots the dinosaur with, like, a gun. You know what I mean? And, I mean, the dinosaur just dies. Like, just 2 hits with the gun, and then that's it. I mean, but dare I say, it was kind of a guilty pleasure. It's not a great movie by any means, like I said, but it was a movie that I did enjoy, at least for what it was worth. All right, then we're going on to the movies that again, we're on the movies that I enjoyed, just to let you guys know. I mean, we're on to the movies I enjoyed and that I was entertained by. Asteroid City. This is one of the most frustrating movies for me because going into it, first of all, I love Wes Anderson. I love Rushmore, Royal Tenenbaums, Grand Budapest Hotel. Love him. Fantastic Mr. Fox. His last few movies, I mean, like Isle of Dogs, I thought was fine. I liked French Dispatch. I did like French Dispatch. I was a little frustrated with how, it was structured, but I understood, like, it was structured like a magazine style. So, I understood, but I was a little frustrated with the film because I felt like a lot of the stories in the film that they had were just like, they just felt like they just cut them off, like early. And I was a little frustrated with that, but I understood it was a magazine style, what he was trying to do. This movie has a great story. I like the alien. I love the way the film looks. I wish I could have saw it on a bigger screen. I just did not find myself invested in the characters. Jason Schwartzman's character, I just wasn't interested in. I just found the movie to be a little draggy in some areas, and there's so much of this movie that's, like, visually impressive, and I like some of the stuff he does with it, but I was kind of let down by it. I was like, man, this could have been, like, I just wasn't invested in the story, and I was just really mad. Well, okay, I wasn't mad, but, like, I was just kind of frustrated that they made it a meta thing. Like, it was like, oh, well, this is like a play, and I'm just like, oh, I just feel like I'm seeing that meta thing just in so many movies as of today. And it's just like, I just feel like with this movie, for them to do that, I just feel like it was just kind of a cop-out, like, it's almost like they didn't want to, it's almost like Wes Anderson didn't really want to, sort of, let this world be like, fake and fictional. It's like, well, he does, but then he wants to do that meta thing where it's like, well, no, it's like a play and whatever it is. And I'm just like, oh man, like, you didn't have to do that. But I mean, like, again, visually, it was a really great movie to look at, but I just didn't find myself invested in the characters. And in a movie like this, that's really dialogue heavy, you kind of have to find that investment with these characters. And for me, I personally just wasn't invested. I know a lot of people loved it, and that's fine. I don't hate this. Like, I did like it, but I was just a little let down by it because I really liked a lot of it. And then there was just so much of it that just was like, it just wasn't really working for me. It's kind of a mixed bag. And I don't know. I mean, Wes Anderson, he has a lot more movies up his belt, and I hope, like, the next movie he does will definitely just strike a chord with me. Because, like I said, the last 3 movies he's done, I've just been sort of like, it was what it was. And I didn't get to watch any of that, like, Netflix stuff he put on. I think because, like, this was just kind of a back burner to the point where I was like, I don't really want to watch the Netflix stuff a little, I'm just not that interested. Because if it's just going to be more like this, I'm just like, I don't really want to watch it. I mean, I'll probably end up watching it at some point, but, like, I don't know. I was a little let down by this movie. But I did like it, but I was just like, I was just frustrated with it because I was like, the setup was so good, and I liked the part with the alien in it, and, like, it just felt like a lot of this movie just did a lot of those things that just, I don't know, just kind of frustrated me sometimes with indie cinema. But yeah, other than that, it was at least, like I said, it was nice to look at and stuff. All right, next movie, Sound of Freedom. Now, I wouldn't have seen this movie if it wasn't for the massive controversy that was going on about this movie, you know, about Angel Studios, you know, and their sort of shenanigans. And there's one other Angel Studios movie out here too. And, you know, the QAnon stuff I know gets brought up all the time with this movie, and I don't know really a lot about that stuff. I know it's some kind of cult or something like that. Jesse Coffey's here in the chat. I mean, he'll probably cue me in on what, like, the controversy. I know he's mentioned this movie a couple of times. I saw it not knowing a lot of the controversy, just going in blindly, or just sort of like, well, not going in blindly, but like going in knowing some of the controversy, but not applying that to the movie. It's just a very routine film, honestly. Like, it's one of those movies where, like, I feel like if I was in high school, like, and I was told, like, this is, like, a movie that I need to watch, I'll probably end up watching it, and then, like, I'll just be like, it was what it was. It just feels like one of those movies, you know? I mean, I do like that they did, you know, bring awareness to this horrible subject matter about, you know, trafficking and stuff, because that is stuff that, you know, you don't see in a lot of movies out there. And I mean, it is really disturbing subject matter that, you know, I don't really want to even see in a movie, period. But I do like that they did at least bring some awareness to that, because that is horrible stuff, and that is stuff that is going on, you know, in general. But for me, the movie itself is just sort of routine as a movie. It's one of those movies you watch on TV or something like that, and you just kind of look at it and you're like, it's fine, you know, or like a Tubi movie. It feels like a Tubi movie more than anything. It really just feels like one of those movies you watch on Tubi. And I know this movie what's funny about this movie is apparently it sat on a shelf for like 5 years because Disney was going to put it out, and then Disney ended up not putting it out, and then it was like, you know, then Angel Studios, I guess, bought it or something like that, and then they put it out. It's kind of weird that, like, this little movie that, like, that just came out of nowhere, I didn't even see a trailer for it, ended up making more domestically than a lot of the films I just talked about. And that's kind of an interesting reality. But again, some of that Angel Studios practices, which I might mention when I talk about the next Angel Studios movie, is quite controversial in itself. We have Quiz Lady. This movie would have been great if it weren't for two things. Number one, if it wasn't rated R. It should have been a PG-13 movie. I don't know why they had to go for the R rating. And number two, if they did not have that subplot with the dog, I just felt like that dog subplot just was like, just really kind of, I don't want to say ruined the movie for me, but it was just hella unnecessary. What I liked about it, it was nice to see Awkwafina in a role, you know, post the farewell, where, like, it feels like they really casted Awkwafina upon her talents, as opposed to just, she's Awkwafina and she has like a weird voice and she just says a lot of stuff, and it's funny because she's got a weird voice. Because I've seen that just a lot from Awkwafina. I'm getting really tired of it. But overall, I was actually quite entertained by it. I liked the chemistry between her and Sandra Oh, and I did like how they played against type, because Sandra Oh, you know, you normally, if you've seen Grey's Anatomy, she's playing like a really serious role, and she's been in a lot of stuff. But it was definitely interesting to see her in a role like this, even if sometimes she did get a little annoying. But I still was entertained by Quiz Lady. It was just sort of a nice little film. But again, I just wish it didn't do some of those comedy things. Like, and then, like, Will Ferrell's in the movie for, like, kind of no reason. I mean, I get that he produced it, but it's just like, did Will Ferrell need to be in it? And then, like, I don't know, the climax of this movie kind of won me over a little bit at the end of it. Again, there could have been a little bit of better things with this, but other than that, other than some of the problems I had, I still had a good time with it. The other Angel Studios movie I wanted to talk about was The Shift. Let me see if I can find a better poster, or the poster in bigger resolution. I guess there we go. There we go. What if I told you that there was a religious or a Christian equivalent to Everything Everywhere All at Once? And while it doesn't have any of the humor, and it's not as funny, and it's not as, like, entertaining as Everything Everywhere All at Once, I honestly had some fun with this movie. Probably in an unintentional way. I was at least entertained by it, you know, for what it was trying to do. It's kind of like the Book of Job, but with, like, the multiverse in it. It's just such a, like, bizarre concept. And I mean, like, it's not an amazing movie or nothing like that, but I feel like I've seen some of these religious action movies. Again, like sometimes I just, like, sit back and I watch some of them just, you know, when I'm drunk or when I'm stoned or something like that, and usually make fun of them. But I'd be surprised that this one had somewhat better filmmaking than a lot of those, and somewhat more competent acting. But again, it's just such a, it's just such a, like, strange concept. And I mean, like, for me, I was still entertained by it, but I feel like I was more entertained on kind of a so bad it's good kind of way. But bringing up that Angel Studios thing, so I'm pretty sure some of you might have saw Sound of Freedom, and if you saw it in the theater, and I don't know if they put this in any of the digital prints, but at the end of the movie, Jim Caviezel is like, like he's like, hey, I want everybody to go see this movie. I'm gonna leave a QR code here so like you can buy a ticket. They do the same thing in this one too, which I just find that really hilarious. But that's that weird Angel Studios practice of buying a ticket and then you could buy somebody else's ticket or something like that. I don't know, really, like, I don't know, like, it's a really weird process, and I don't know, like, what am I trying to say? Like, like I said, it's just a weird process for me, and I find it almost, like, unintentionally funny, the way that they're setting it up. Let's see. Alright. Then we got Wonka with Timothée Chalamet. I thought this was a fine movie. I thought it was pretty good. Visually, it looked really nice. Some of the music was fine in it, and I liked Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa. For me, I don't know. I've seen 3 adaptations of Willy Wonka, and it's like, for me, I didn't like it as much as the previous 2. The Gene Wilder one I really like, and honestly, I know a lot of people don't like the Tim Burton one, but I really like that one, and I know it's probably a nostalgia thing because I watched it a lot as a kid, but rewatching it, I really like the visual aesthetic of that movie, and I really like some of the way that film, was presented. I feel like this movie was kind of interesting, but I also felt like it wasn't really that interesting as a backstory, per se. You know what I mean? A lot of the backstory went on to, like, sort of, or a lot of the more interesting backstory was on, like, was on some of the other, like, sub characters in the film. Sorry, I'm trying to think. Like, some of the, like, sub characters, and not really Willy Wonka himself. I feel like the Willy Wonka story was just a little bit generic, but, I mean, it still kind of worked. For me, I was a little let down by it because it's directed by Paul King, and he directed the Paddington films, and I love Paddington 2 a lot. It's not as good as those movies, but it still was entertaining for what it was. I mean, it was well made, and it had some really nice visuals to it, but I just feel like it's one of those movies I watch it, and I'm not going to think about too much after it was over. You know what I mean? Like, it was nice to look at, and it was definitely, a fun watch, but it just wasn't one of those things where I'm going to rush back. I'm not going to rush and buy this on Blu-ray when it comes out. It's just one of those things where it's like, it was fun. That's pretty much all I have to say about Wonka. No hard feelings. This was a fine movie. I mean, like, it was definitely worth it just for Jennifer Lawrence alone. Just seeing her in a role like this, and it's definitely cool to see, like, a woman of her caliber, like, that's an Oscar-winning actress to do a film like this. And, I mean, I'll be honest, like, it's mostly worth it to watch it just for that scene where she's fighting, those guys on the beach. That's all I'm going to say about it. Transformers Rise of the Beast. I went into this with low expectations because the Transformers movies that we've had previously, besides the first one, I really couldn't stand. So, going into this, like I said, low expectations. Came out pleasantly surprised. I think, by not having that Michael Bay heavy action and just, like, consistent loudness and noise and just confusing plots definitely helped this one. I would say that Bumblebee is still better than this one, but Bumblebee, I'll be honest, like, Haley Steinfeld's really the best thing about Bumblebee, and not because she's hot, just because Haley Steinfeld's really good in Bumblebee. It's just that, for me, like, Bumblebee, like, I mean, Haley Steinfeld really is what holds Bumblebee together, in my opinion. But this movie I thought was pretty good, too. It's definitely the best one. Like, one of the 3 Transformers movies I can tolerate. Like, the first one I like, the Bumblebee, like I mentioned, and this one. I could definitely tolerate this one. I know some people didn't care much for it, but I was like, you know what? It was definitely fun, and I grown to actually like the characters this time, because one of the things I didn't like about the Michael Bay movies was that the Autobots were, like, assholes. Like, they have this, like, real like toxic masculinity to them, and I just couldn't stand it. I was just like, man, you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know, like I'm supposed to like these guys, but they're always destroying stuff. They're always destroying the city, and I'm like, I don't really care. But like this one, I actually grown to like the Autobots, and even what is it, the Pete Davidson one. I even like that character, which I thought, you know, it was like, oh, it's Pete Davidson, it's going to be annoying. Like, because I feel like if it was Michael Bay, he would have been annoying. But because it's not Michael Bay, it's like, you know, because it's somebody else who actually cares about these characters, I'm like, wow, this character's actually interesting, you know? Not enough for me to really be like, oh, I want to see more Transformers, but enough for me to be like, this franchise I feel like is going in a better direction than what Michael Bay was trying to do with it. I just felt like the Michael Bay stuff, it just was getting really repetitive, and I was just getting really sick of it. You know, like I said, those like, the sequels are just really just not, it's just not there. But this one I liked, enjoyed a lot more than those. Another movie that nobody's heard of, and it's a movie that, you know, I also rented on VOD, was All Souls. This movie stars Mikey Madison, who you probably remember as the villain in Scream 5. And she also was in that show Better Things with that one actress that voices Bobby Hill, that FX show. You know, for a VOD movie, I thought it wasn't that bad. It kind of reminded me of like Judgment Night or Don't Breathe, where it's kind of like a really like simple story about like, you know, this character trying to get out of like this inner city sort of setting. Really big problem with it is that, you know, the movie's really short, so you don't really get a lot of time to know a lot of the other characters, but I still found myself entertained by it, you know, for what it was. Then we got Leo, which is that Adam Sandler one. Kind of like Candy Cane Lane, went into this with low expectations, came out of it actually pleasantly surprised by it. It had a general sweetness to it, and I liked a lot of the messages. And it definitely rivals 8 Crazy Nights in comparison of Adam Sandler animated movies. Even though I have a soft spot for 8 Crazy Nights, I'll be honest. But like, I still enjoyed Leo for what it was. It had nice animation. Although I did not care for the musical numbers, I did think that, you know, it kind of warmed up to me. Like, the movie kind of warmed up to me as it was going on, and even like Adam Sandler in this film kind of warmed up to me. It was nice to watch something like this on Netflix, you know, and it's definitely nice to have a kids movie that actually tackles some kind of serious issues and sort of has a general like sweetness to it, and something that you don't see sometimes in even like modern animated films. Scream 6. So here's the thing about the Scream movies, right? The first Scream is a classic. The sequels are not bad, but I've never been enthusiastic about the Scream sequels. And I feel like one of the big problems with the Scream sequels, including this one, is that they're all the same. Like, I don't know why, like, you can't get one character in these movies that's ever just like, hey, we've done this before, like, I don't know, or this has happened before all these other times, like, let's not make the same mistakes. And you know what? They keep making the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. And this one, while it's still the same as the other ones, first of all, I like this one better than the last one. The last Scream, I'll be honest, I wasn't really too keen on that one. I felt like the whole meta thing that they were trying to do with it, like the whole meta angle of like, oh well, we're remaking the last Scream or the first Scream or something like that. I was just like, it's really dumb, because really, if you think about it, all this, like I said, all the Scream movies, they're all the same. It's like, what is so different about this one? Like, they're trying to pretend like this one's like really different. I'm like, there's nothing really different about this Scream compared to the other ones. But like, this one, it kind of goes back to the basics, but what I really liked about this one is I really liked the setting of this one. I like that this one took place in like New York City, and I like that they did play around with New York City a little bit, like the way that it's crowded, and some of the set pieces were really entertaining. I feel like that alone definitely made this a lot of fun to watch on the big screen. It's a shame that, you know, Scream 7 is a complete shit show at this moment in time. You know, I gotta tell you, like, Spyglass Entertainment can shove that spyglass up their ass, you know, for doing all the shit that they just did. Well, okay, well, I mean, they fired the main star, but, you know, I'm not gonna get into it, but, like, other than that, I was pleasantly surprised with this entry in the Scream franchise. A franchise that, if anything, has kind of grown to ad nauseum a little bit, but this movie at least showcased that there was still some life into it. I will say with the Scream movies, I feel like the reason why these movies stand out a lot more than a lot of horror franchises compared to like Halloween and Friday the 13th is that at least like when we're looking at the Sixth movie, it's still really well made and well directed, and they don't really cheapen out like with a lot of the story and stuff. Like that's one thing I did like about like the Scream franchise is like they don't cheapen out. You know, they don't feel like super half-assed as far as their filmmaking goes. But I mean, again, you have Wes Craven directing like majority of the franchise, but the last two I think are still really well made, and the acting is still good in these films. Even though, you know, sometimes I have problems with like a lot of the writing and the way that the characters interact with each other and stuff like that, I still feel like these are well put together films, you know, at the very least. I don't know. This might be the last Scream we get for a while, and, you know, at least they ended on a good mark, I have to say. Blue Beetle. I probably should have put this a little lower on the list, but here's the thing. I went into this with low expectations. Came out actually pleasantly surprised with this one too. I really like the family dynamic in this one a lot, and I feel like that's what really lifted it, because the superhero stuff is just really generic and just the same old stuff you've seen a million times, but the family dynamic in this was really good. I really liked the way that the family interacts. You know, the inclusion of George Lopez in the film was really like surprising to me. I was like sitting there like, wow, this is like George Lopez, he's really funny. You know, obviously he's a funny comedian, but definitely was a good addition to this film. Like I said, as far as superhero movies go, it's pretty routine. You know, the action sequences are routine, the story's pretty routine and stuff like that. You've seen this a million times, but I was like, hey, it was still pretty fun for what it was. You know, it's a lot more better than most of the other DC films I've seen this year, even though I haven't seen Aquaman 2, but I don't know. I've heard Aquaman 2 isn't really all that great, but I'm not surprised. We have The Blackening. I like this movie. I really enjoyed it. I was I kind of felt like the momentum of the first two acts kind of gets lost near the third. You know, when they have to kind of reveal everything. Like, this movie has a really nice momentum to it in the beginning of it. I was really kind of going along with it. And then, like, the third act, it's not that it ruins anything. It's not that it's bad. It's just that I feel like this movie had a really good momentum that doesn't really keep it afloat near the third act. And again, when they have to reveal, you know, the whole thing at the end of it, I was just kind of like, man, I was really kind of getting into it. I don't know. If this movie had a better third act, this probably would be higher on the list. But the third act, like I said, so I'm drinking water. I'm taking sips of water. My throat's just getting dry. But again, watching this film, you know, was still fun to watch. Although I did see this in a partially empty theater, but I still had a good time with it. Not much to say. Cocaine Bear. This movie, the only problem with this movie is that the marketing kind of makes it look like it's a lot more goofier and over the top than it really is. The movie kind of takes itself a lot more seriously than it needs to. But even with that being said, I still found myself having a lot of fun with it. I really liked I liked some of the set pieces. I really liked that one set piece with the ambulance. I thought that was a really fun set piece. The kills were really well done. Like, really well done with the kills. But I will say, like, some of the subplots are just really silly. Like, the ones with the kids and the ones with, like, was it Ice Cube's son in it? I mean, those subplots are pretty, you know, over the top as is. But I still found myself really enjoying it for what it was. I mean, it's sort of just like a one-note premise, like, oh, it's a bear that eats a lot of cocaine and kills things. But I was like, you know what? Yeah, it gave me some entertainment. I was like, it's fun. Megan. This was a fun movie. I kind of have a soft spot for it because I actually ended up seeing it twice in the theater. The first time I just saw it just when it came out, and then I saw it again because I saw The Well with Brendan Fraser, and I cried so hard to that movie that I actually had to see this movie again just to kind of put me in a good spirit, because The Well just made me really upset at the end of it. Like really upsetting film that was for me. So seeing this, you know, again, it kind of has a bit of a soft spot for it. It's a really dumb movie, and when you really get down to it, it's just a Lifetime movie with, like, somewhat better filmmaking and somewhat better acting than your average Lifetime movie. But again, it's still a Lifetime movie if you really think about it. The writing's like Lifetime. The music is hella Lifetime. I mean, the music in this movie is like the most Lifetime music, like Lifetime movie music ever. You know what I mean? But I mean, I still had fun with this incredibly silly movie, you know, when you really get down to it. We got Anyone But You. Okay, so I saw this one recently. I saw this, I was out of town and I went to go see this one. And the thing is, this is one of the most basic romantic comedies I've seen in quite a while. And I don't really watch a lot of romantic comedies, but man, is this movie hella basic, all right? It is really basic. This movie makes Elemental look like Past Lives in terms of how cliched and basic the romance is. When you watch this movie, you know exactly where everything is going, all right? You do. You don't even have to watch a lot of romantic comedies to even know where this movie is going. And yet I still found myself wrapped up, cozied, kind of a cute and really kind of infectiously sweet romantic comedy, even though it is a raunchy comedy and there is some nudity in it. I still found myself wrapped around in it. And I don't know if it's just because, you know, Sydney Sweeney's in it, you know, and Sydney Sweeney, she's just a dame, you know, she's just a real dame, but like, you know, and the leads are really great. I mean, like Glenn Powell, obviously, but Sydney Sweeney, she was really good in this, and I'm glad to see her in more stuff. I'm glad to see her in stuff that's not Euphoria, although I've never watched Euphoria, but like, you know, it's just, I feel like that show's kind of a bad omen on like her career. I feel like, you know, just people watch that show, and I mean, like I said, I don't watch it, but like, I just looking at it and just seeing the people will talk about it, I'm just like, I feel like that show is just kind of a bad omen on her career, I feel. And, you know, you watch this and it's like, it's not like a great movie. Like, it's not gonna like, you know, be on my top, like, it's not my top 10 or like that. But I was like, this was a really just kind of cute, and it was also went at a fast pace. It was really short. It was like an hour and 40 minutes. You know, it wasn't like 2 hours and like that. So it kind of won me over a little bit. You know, I'll be honest. I'll be really honest. Then we got Beau is Afraid. I don't know what the hell I watched. This movie. Listen, I've never seen. I've yet to see Ari Aster's previous two movies, but holy shit, was this a wild ass movie? I'm thinking about rewatching it in spite of its 3-hour length, just to kind of wrap my head around what I just watched. You know, I saw it in the theater when it came out, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I did not understand a lot of this movie, and I still found myself enjoying it, and there is some of it that's really creative, and the visuals are really good in it. A24's most expensive movie, I think, is this film. And really good performances, too, like Joaquin Phoenix, but Nathan Lane is really good in it. You know, but again, it was just it was a really surreal and strange film. Maybe it could have been better if it was a little shorter. There are some aspects of it that are a little long. I do feel like the movie in the middle section, when he's in the woods, really just drags. Like, I feel like that's really the section of the movie. Because I looked at that and I was like, I really love the visuals in it, but man, is this section, it's just a little bit, you know, it's just way too long for what it is. But overall, I have to say, I still found myself entertained by the insanity that is Beau is Afraid. I love hearing people's reactions to it, you know, just people who love it and people who hate it. It's just, it's kind of like, I'm surprised this isn't on a lot of top 10s, honestly. Well, okay, maybe I'm not surprised. It's not on my top 10, but, you know, I still found myself entertained by this insanity, like I said. Let's see. Let me close this page out, and I'll close this page out, because we were almost, you know, getting there. We're almost getting close to the top 10. Some other movies. And we're on all the movies I've enjoyed. Now we're basically on all the movies I was entertained by and that I enjoyed and stuff like that. Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget. Watched this one recently, and I'll be honest, I kind of forgot about it. This is a movie that just feels like it's long overdue, and I can't knock on it because it's stop motion, and if you know how long stop motion takes, you really just... You honestly can't really knock on Chicken Run 2 when you look at it. It's like, it's a stop motion movie, but like, of course but I feel like the story is basically kind of just underwhelming. it reminded me of Toy Story 2. A lot of it reminded me of Toy Story 2. A lot of like the set pieces, because I think there's a scene where like they're in the vent, and that's exactly like in Toy Story 2. And you know, kind of the same thing where they have to like kind of escape out of the like factory. Well, I mean that's like Toy Story 3 if anything. So a lot of it just reminded me of Toy Story. Not as good as Toy Story. Maybe it's just because I love that first Chicken Run, and Chicken Run, the thing about Chicken Run is like the first Chicken Run came out when I was 3, and I think I saw it on video, and at the time that animation style really stuck out to me because I had never seen anything like that, you know. And looking at this sequel, it's like, yeah, the animation's really good, but the story in this one isn't as good as the first. And also, like, Zachary Levi as Rocky is just really distracting because it's Zachary Levi. The whole time I was just thinking of Flynn Rider as a chicken, and it's like, you know, I shouldn't be thinking of Flynn Rider as a chicken when I'm, you know, thinking about this Chicken Run movie, you know, trying to watch this Chicken Run sequel. But, you know, outside of the problems I had with it, I still found myself entertained by it. It was a short movie, a relatively short film. It was like 80 minutes long or something like that. But again, it could have been a lot more stronger in the story department. But it's hard because when I look at the technicality of it and just how long it took to make that stop motion, you know, and the amount of work Aardman did, it honestly, I don't know, it sort of, maybe it's visual over substance if you really think about it, you know? So yeah, I mean, Chicken Run 2, I mean, it was what it was. I probably won't think about this movie much after, you know, it definitely is not as good as the first, but honestly, that's probably why I'm a lot more, a little bit more open towards it, because, like, I knew it wasn't going to be as good as the first. I mean, the first one, that was sort of, to me, like lightning in a bottle. Again, kind of like Roger Rabbit, where it's like you watch it, and you're sort of just, like, again, I remember, it's one of those movies I watched as a kid, and just remember being taken aback by it visually, and just being really stunned by it, you know? And, you know, you look at this and it's like, yeah, it's not as good, but I'm still mildly charmed by the amount of work that Aardman put into it. So yeah, Chicken Run 2, not as good as the first, probably won't find myself watching this one too often, but maybe I'll warm up to it in the future if I do watch it again. I don't know. Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. This was a solid movie. You know, definitely better than the 2000s one with Marlon Wayans, that's for sure. You know, some fun set pieces, and, you know, I like the cast a lot in it. Chris Pine, Justice Smith, Michelle Rodriguez. I did like the cast in it. You know, it didn't perform that well, so I don't think we're going to see a sequel of it, but, like, I thought with the amount of work that the directors did, and it's the directors who did the film Game Night, which I like Game Night a little more than this one, mostly because Game Night had a scene in it that made me laugh so hard I thought I was going to die, and it was near the end of the movie when the dude gets sucked in the turbine, so, like, you know, compared to Game Night, you know, I didn't think it was as funny, but I still thought this was a solid film for what it was. It definitely was better than I thought it was going to be, because I just sort of saw the trailer and I was like, oh man, they're making another Dungeons & Dragons. It didn't work out the first time. Like, come on. You know, but other than that, Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, solid film. Then we got Joyride. I enjoyed this one. You know, I was a little let down by it because the trailer hyped it up. I remember the trailer had like all those quotes where it's like, oh, this is the funniest comedy ever made. And I mean, it's not a 5 out of 5 movie. It's more like a 4 out of 5 movie. And it's a solid 4 out of 5 film. The cast was really good in it. Stephanie Hsu, as you see on this poster, was my favorite of the cast because we saw her in Everything Everywhere All at Once as the daughter. And you watch Everything Everywhere, and she plays a really depressed and just very, like, upset, like, daughter. And then you watch her in this, and it's, like, really, you know, like, it's a real flip of the coin in terms of performances. And it really shows you the amount of, you know, how diverse Stephanie Hsu is as an actress. I haven't seen her in a lot of things, and I've heard she's good on that Miss Maisel show, which I don't have any desires to watch. But watching her in this, like I said, Everything Everywhere, like sort of just seeing how, you know, different she was in the performances was really just something that really stuck out to me. You know, and I know they're very different films, obviously, tonally, but it definitely really showcases how versatile she is as an actress, and I really hope to see her in more things. That's all I have to say about Joyride. Then we have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. I'm going to just be straightforward. I didn't like this one as much as Fallout, and I didn't like this one as much as Mission Impossible 4. Those two, in my opinion, are two of my favorites of the Mission Impossible films. Number 4 is my favorite, but Fallout is really, really good. I feel like this movie, when you watch it, you could tell it was made during the pandemic, and it doesn't really hide that factor a whole bunch. Just some of the green screen I felt was a little bit more noticeable if I had to get nitpicky, but the action sequences are still really impressive. Tom Cruise, he's still a force, and he's still just doing all kinds of crazy stunts for basically our own amusement. But that was the other thing, man. It's like Top Gun Maverick came out last year, and it's like you watch Top Gun Maverick, and it's like, wow, this was really, really good. And honestly, even compared to Top Gun Maverick, which isn't fair, I feel like this movie did pale in comparison a little bit. I mean, listen, I liked the film. I really enjoyed it. Definitely was very entertaining, a lot of the set pieces, and I liked the pacing of it. But again, it wasn't my favorite of the Mission Impossible films. And I see a lot of people that really like this one and they're ranking this one up, but I feel like, to me, it paled a little bit in comparison to Fallout, because Fallout just, to me, just like slaps. Like watching that movie again, and you got Henry Cavill in that movie, and a real stat cat like Angela Bassett, and like, it just really was. I really like Fallout a lot more than this one, but I still did like this one, and I am interested to see what they do with the next one. And it's kind of a shame this movie didn't do as well, but I feel like this movie came out in the crowded summer market where didn't really have, where it had a lot of competition, and it should have probably came out a little earlier or a little bit later in the season. Actually, December might have been the best timing for this film. If I really think about it, like Paramount might have had a December film, but Then we got Color Purple. Saw this one fairly recently. Now, I've never seen the Spielberg Color Purple, but watching this one, I was really entertained by it. Thought it was a really good adaptation of the Broadway musical and the book itself. I feel like the movie does lack a little bit visually, but I really like the performances from the cast. I don't really have a lot to say about Color Purple, except it was a very well made and well put together, well acted film too. I did really enjoy the musical numbers. Then we have No One Will Save You. This is a movie that some people like and some people hate. I'm actually on the positive camp on this one. I liked Caitlin Deaver's performance a lot. Again, glad to see her in more stuff. But what I really liked about it was that it really was one of those movies where it always kept you, I don't want to say on the edge, but it always kept you wanting to, not dive into it. Like, I'm trying to look for a good term for this. Like, it really kept you entertained the whole time because you never really knew where it was going, and it always did something that was, like, really surprising, every time. And I was really, like, entertained by what, this film... I was really entertained by this film as far as that goes. And I know some people, were very, some people didn't care for the, no dialogue thing, but I really enjoyed that. I was glad to watch a movie like this and there's no talking in it, and I really liked how they approached it as sort of a silent film. Again, one of those things that kind of keeps you on the edge. It reminded me a lot of A Quiet Place, and I feel like if that's not really your, vibe, then you're not going to like it. But I found myself entertained by it. I mean, it's not a perfect movie or nothing like that. It reminds me of one of those movies that, one of those movies like Phone Booth or like Red Eye, where it's like 80 minutes and you're entertained by this very simplistic premise and concept, and you're sort of invested into it, and it just gives you enough entertainment for that. It's a very small movie, a small, tight 80-minute film that gives you exactly what you're kind of into, or at least what I'm into, Nothing like amazing, but definitely a solid film. Then we have Oppenheimer. Incredible to see this on the big screen. Definitely like a technical feat to behold. One of the most impressive films I've seen, and probably one of the best Christopher Nolan movies I've seen in quite some time, probably since Interstellar, maybe. Really good performance by Cillian Murphy, and he's finally getting some attention out there. Cillian Murphy's one of those guys that's just a real working force. I've always really liked Cillian Murphy, whether it's Red Eye, 28 Days Later, a lot of the other collaborations he's done with Christopher Nolan, going back, stuff like Inception and like Batman Begins. I'm really glad that Cillian Murphy's finally getting some attention. I mean, I know he's been around for a long time, but I feel like he's getting awards attention, which is really good. I was glad to see that. So definitely a solid film. I'm trying to think. Oh, the real when the explosion happened, I really loved the sound design and the way that the explosion was done. Like, I really just, it's one of those things where it stands out so much. I want to go back to the theater and see that explosion again. Just the explosion sequence, because the way that the sound design was on that was just incredible. I didn't get to see this on film or in IMAX, unfortunately. I just did not, a lot of that stuff is just way out of my range, unfortunately. But it still was really impressive seeing this on the big screen. The Super Mario Brothers movie, I talked about it on that video. As a fan of the games, I really enjoyed it. I liked what Illumination did with it. It definitely was better than the one we had from back in the day. Visually, it at least felt more attuned to Super Mario, but it also was just a betterly made movie altogether. It's not like an amazing film. The story is very, it's very basic and doesn't make a lot of sense. But to me, I really felt like they, like I said, just sort of recapping what I said in the review, I feel like they really captured the fast-paced Rube Goldberg aesthetic of Super Mario, and that's something that to me was really impressive. I was not expecting them to do that. I could have done without some of the pop songs and some of the celebrity voices didn't stick out that much. Didn't really add a lot to the movie except Jack Black as Bowser, because I think he kills it as Bowser. But other than that, I still really liked it. I still had a good time with it. Then we have Elemental. This is a movie that is a comfort movie for me, like a huge comfort movie for me, because I saw it in the theater. I really enjoyed it. I was not expecting to come out, really enjoying it, because the marketing was really terrible. But it's a comfort movie because I've just found myself rewatching it again and again, because I love the animation and I love the characters. I love the voice actors, the actors who voice Wade and Ember. I think that those characters, or I think that the characters I really liked. It just was such a beautiful film to really be around. The romance itself is really cliche, and some of the dialogue is like really cheesy in this movie, like, Hallmark Channel cheesy, you know what I mean? And it's one of those movies you're watching, you just kind of predict the lines, what the characters are going to say sometimes, but it definitely won me over. Dare I say I like this a little more than Turning Red, I'll be honest. It's not as good as Soul, but, I'll be honest, like, when I see people talking about, recent Pixar films, I feel like this one is a solid contender, at least in my eyes, because I actually really enjoyed this one. It's kind of a shame that a lot of people, kind of dump on it and said it was terrible and stuff, but again, I feel like it won't, if you're not really into the romance aesthetic of it, you're not really going to like it. It's a very basic, or not basic, but like it's a very, I guess basic film, because there's not really a lot of story to it and the stakes aren't really heavy, but that's one of the reasons why I feel like it sticks out to me. I don't know, I found myself really entertained by this one. Again, I find myself watching this one again in the future, although I'm still trying to figure out how Wade and Ember do it, but we're not going to get into that. Okay, so here's one I saw recently, Poor Things. I did not know what I was getting myself into when I saw this movie. The trailer, thankfully, doesn't reveal a lot about it. Doesn't really reveal a lot about its premise. It is one of the horniest movies I've ever seen in my life. There is so much nudity and there is so much skin in this movie. I was really surprised by the amount. I was surprised that this movie is rated R. It felt like this would have been like NC-17 if this came out in the 90s. Like, the amount of sex and nudity that's in this movie was really like surprising to me. I really enjoyed it for what it was. It was just incredibly strange. Really good visuals and really good performances. Mark Ruffalo's performance, I hope he gets some like awards nominations for that, because I really liked his performance in this, and his character in this. I thought Mark Ruffalo was really, really good in this. This is one of those movies that definitely will turn a lot of people off, and you either really get invested into it or you really will dislike it. Again, it was really interesting seeing this. It's one of the most interesting films I've seen, and I'm still to this day thinking about it. It's just a lot of the visuals in it, and I mean, the director of this, the only reason I saw this was because the director of it did a movie with Emma Stone called The Favorite that I really liked, with her and Rachel Weisz. It was a dark comedy. Really liked that film. So that was basically the only reason I saw this. So I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I did. We have Boy and the Huron. Really, all I could say about this movie is that Studio Ghibli movies, I haven't seen a lot of Studio Ghibli films, honestly, but to me, they're an experience. you just sort of sit there and you just let the film consume you. Like, you're the viewer, but you are letting the film enter inside you. Which I know, okay, that sounds wrong. But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, like, this movie visually was... I mean, visually it's like Studio Ghibli, but basically, like, the film visually was really just stunning to look at. And the music, I really liked in it a lot. The score, that is... you know, a lot of people, you know, or sorry, it's one of those movies that I did really find myself really entertained by. And again, really wonderful seeing this on the big screen, because I'd never seen a Studio Ghibli film on the big screen. I'd seen anime films on the big screen. You know what? I forgot to add one movie here. I might have to pause it and bring it up, or maybe I'll bring it up at the end. But yeah, I did really enjoy Born the Huron. I thought it was very beautiful film, really just beautiful film. And again, like I said, like Studio Ghibli films are just those kind of movies where, like, again, the story's not really heavy, but again, these films, you just sort of have to let them approach you instead of approaching them, you know. And that's what I liked about it. And the marketing was very obstruct, I've heard, overseas, although here we did get a trailer. I didn't even see the trailer. I just went in cold. I was like, I'm just going to let this movie do whatever it's going to do, and I'm going to either accept it or not accept it, but I did really accept it. And that's something that I think is really wonderful. We have Talk to Me. See if I can find a poster in high resolution. There's not that many options, weirdly enough. I should have went on a different website. I really like this film a lot. I feel like, to me, this was the better version of that movie Smile that came out that came out last year or whatever it was, like 2 years ago. Because I wasn't a huge fan of Smile. I really was not. And to me, this was a better version of that. I really liked the horror aspect of it. It had moved at a tight pace. And let's see, what was the one thing I wanted to bring about this movie? Like, I don't know. To me, it just felt really effective. Like, it just really got to me. Like, it wasn't like I was jumping out of my seat, but I was really invested into it. And the directors of it are the guys, I think the Raka guys. And I really like their YouTube videos, so it was definitely cool to see them make a movie like this and for them to knock it out of the park. So I'm definitely looking forward to a lot of the stuff that they have coming up. We have Guardians of the Galaxy 3. You know, it's a lot of people say, well, hey, you know, Endgame was the last really good Marvel movie, and I say bullshit, because not only did we have No Way Home, but we also have Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I truly, really enjoyed. I almost skipped this one because I was let down by Quantumania, and I was like, well, boy, like, I don't care about Guardians 3. Like, and they fired James Gunn, and they're gonna hire him back. Like, what is he gonna do? And he really gives these characters a outstanding send-off. This might be my favorite of the Guardians films. I know that might be a controversial opinion, but I feel like this one, I don't know, like, the first one is probably like I guess the top tier, the one that everybody loves, but this one really does come close. I love the characters, like the character interactions in this one, and I mean, I just couldn't get enough of Mantis in this film. I know I'm probably simping over here, but I'm gonna try not to simp. But Mantis was just absolutely amazing, and I love that character, and I'm definitely gonna miss Palm Clementif as this character. But I really like this film because I felt like it wasn't, unlike a lot of the Marvel movies we've had, it didn't feel lazy. It didn't feel like a cash grab. It just felt like, here are these characters that you know and love, and you're going to get invested into these characters, and you really do. I found myself crying in this film, and that's something that rarely happens with superhero films. And when you can get a genuine reaction of a superhero film like this, that's a really, really good thing. Definitely one of the best Marvel movies in quite some time, and that's saying a lot. Then we got Air. I saw this one on an early screening. Really enjoyed it. Great performance by Matt Damon. Excellent performance by Viola Davis. Glad to see Chris Tucker in something like this recent. He was good in it. Everybody was really good in it. It had a really good tight pace to it. It is kind of like, you know, your same old story, you know, kind of like, it reminds me a lot of like Moneyball. And you're seeing a lot of movies like that, you know, like a lot of movies that are very talky, and they're sort of, what do you want to call them, like product films, I guess, because there was a Hot Cheetos one. There was a Blackberry one, which I still haven't seen the one. Everybody says the one's really good. I'll have to check it out. But this movie, for me, definitely really worked because of the performances and the writing. I thought the script was really good in it, and it definitely had a really good pace to it. So you never felt bored, or you never really felt uninterested in these characters or any of these or any of this story, because this easily could have just been like a really flat, just sort of like generic film. Like, I feel like if this was more like Hollywood, like if a bigger studio got their hands on this would have been very like gimmicky, and it didn't come off as gimmicky. I thought it was really well done. It definitely was worth my time. All right, now we're finally there, folks. We're finally there. We're finally at the top 10 movies, or my top 10 movies of 2023. This list can change anytime. You know, there's some movies I still haven't checked out yet, like American Fiction, and movies like oh yeah, Godzilla -1. Still haven't seen that one yet. So this list could change anytime. But as of right now, as of January 4th, 2024, these are my top 10 movies of 2023. And there's one more movie I actually forgot to add. Hold on a sec. I'll get to you guys in a minute. See if I can pause the stream real quick. Can I pause the stream here? I don't know if I can. I guess I can't. Can I pause the stream? Let's see, I can stop streaming, but I don't want to pause the stream. You know what? I'll probably get back to that in a second. But anyways, let's go on to the top 10 of the year, or my top 10, my personal top 10. So, number 10, we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, a movie that I was a bit skeptical on when I saw the trailer, because I was like, is it going to be too much like Spider-Verse? Is it going to be like just kind of a rip-off of Spider-Verse or something like that? Like, I see what they're trying to do with this movie, and I see what they're trying to do with the music and stuff, but seeing in the theaters, I was gobsmacked at how much I enjoyed this movie. It's not that, first of all, it does take inspiration from Spider-Verse, but it's so, like, blazingly, like, fresh at how it approaches the style, the tone, the interaction of the Ninja Turtle characters, you know, some of the like, the villains in it, and, like, April O'Neil. This Ninja Turtles movie is the best, hands down for me, the best Ninja Turtles movie I've seen. Like, it rivals the 1990 film, and I was not expecting that at all. You know what I said? You know what I mean? Like, it was so surprising to see something like this in the theater, and a movie that really captured the essence of Ninja Turtles, and something that was lacking, because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, if this was given by a lesser people, this would just be a cash grab. You know, you look at this and you just be like, oh, well, whatever. It'd just be like, you know, Ninja Turtles just doing Ninja Turtle stuff. But no, this movie to me really stood out as far as like really approaching these characters, and it made me rejuvenate my love in Ninja Turtles. And the thing is like I was never like big on Ninja Turtles. I really admired the Ninja Turtles characters. I did watch the cartoon, well, not the 80s one, but I watched the 2003 one, and I played some of the video games, which, you know, video games are a lot of fun. And, you know, so you do always have that, you know, admire for the Ninja... I always had that admire for the Ninja Turtles, but really, besides the 1990 movie, they really just never striked out with, like, a huge film. I mean, they had, like, you know, those films in the 90s. They had the animated one, which I need to rewatch. And then they had the Michael Bay produced ones, which nobody really remembers. But finally, here we are, 2023, or 2024 now, watching this Ninja Turtles film and really just hitting it out of the park. I was definitely surprised at how much I really got out of this film. And definitely the best Nickelodeon movie I've seen in quite some time. I think maybe after Sponge Out of Water, you know, like the best theatrical Nickelodeon movie. And that alone definitely made it worth it. Number 9, The Holdovers. Alexander Payne's last movie was Downsizing. I think that was his last one, and it was a bit of a disappointment. So I feel like he went back to his roots by making The Holdovers, a movie that is just a very comforting film. The performances from all three, you know, from the 3 cast members that you see here, outstanding performances. It's not just the performances that are outstanding. And one of the things I liked about The Holdovers is a very just cozy film. You really just, and it's one of those like Christmas movies like Bad Santa, where it's not heavy on like the Christmas aesthetic of it. And it's very just sort of like neutral. And I like that because it really approaches Christmas and like the holiday season in a way where it's like, this is just how people sort of just interacting around these times. I loved the way it was approached. I love that it was shot on, even though it was shot on film, or sorry, it was shot on digital, it looks like it was shot on film. When I saw this in the theater, I was like, oh, this is just shot on film. Like, he ended up shooting this on film. No, but they did shoot this on digital. And, they ended up shooting on like actual locations and stuff, which I thought was really impressive. It was just really great to see a film like this and a movie that's really hard to dislike, in any given route. I mean, if I see anybody that dislikes it, I'm like, I don't really know what you're expecting. I mean, yeah, it's a little slow, but I feel like if you like movies like Royal Tenenbaums or even like Good Will Hunting, where it's not necessarily that there's a huge plot in them, it's just that I feel like they're mostly character driven, I think you'll really admire The Holdovers, because it does a great job at establishing the tone, the setting, the characters, and you really want to see these people. You really admire these characters. And Alexander Payne does an amazing job with that. With films like About Schmidt and films like Sideways, even like The Descendants, which The Descendants I think is pretty good. I'm not in love with it, but I thought it was a good movie. I think he does a really good job at establishing that. And I mean, my favorite film of his is Election with Matthew Broderick, but I feel like Election is kind of a little bit more different in tone. Well, it is different in tone than this, because Election is a lot more like snarkier and darker, and this is a lot more like, has a lot more warmth to it, but it's not overly joyous with the warmth either. It's very like I said, neutral with the warmth. It reminds me, like I said, of stuff like Bad Santa, or even like the first Home Alone, where it's not really heavy on the joy of Christmas. It's more like just these characters in this setting, and we're establishing that. And that's why I feel The Holdovers definitely needs a solid spot in as far as like holiday films, or sort of recent holiday films. Definitely the best holiday film I've seen in quite some time. Number 8, a movie that isn't on a lot of top 10s because I think it came out way too early and a lot of people kind of sort of forgot about it. John Wick Chapter 4. Now, I am biased because I do really enjoy the previous John Wick films. John Wick 1 is a solid action thriller, but one of the things I really liked about the John Wick sequels was how they expanded the world of John Wick. And how John Wick, is sort of like, they really make this world, like they make something that was like really small and they really expand on it. And the action set pieces, for me, get better and better as the films go along. Even clocking in at a near 3-hour runtime, John Wick Chapter 4 still manages to be one of the most entertaining and, thrilling action films I've seen in quite some time. This is a great movie when you're sitting on suspense, when you find your hero falling down a set of stairs. And that's all I'm going to leave it at. John Wick Chapter 4, I don't know, I think they're talking about doing a 5th one, and I don't know why they want to do a 5th one. It's like, you should just leave it at that, Number 7, Nimona. A huge surprise for me. A movie that I sort of went in blindly, didn't know a lot about it, I saw people were talking about it, a lot of buzz for it. Definitely found myself really admiring this film. I love the animation style of it. I love the character designs. I love all of the way that this film approaches like homosexuality and a lot of the messages, because I feel like a lot of times when you see Hollywood try to do that, they come off as very condescending when they try to present, people that are gay and people that are lesbians and stuff like that in cinema. But here's Nimona. Here's like a little movie on Netflix, and it's presenting that in a way where it felt very natural to what these characters are, and it definitely had a lot more edge than a lot of your animated films out there. And not like in this way where it's got gross jokes or nothing like that, but in this way where like it feels like this movie doesn't talk down to kids. It's okay to show people dying. It's okay to have the characters cuss. It's okay to have the characters, maybe drinking a little bit. Like just normal people, and really getting you into the world and really doing a good job of getting you into the world. It's one of those movies where it was over, you're just kind of mad that it's over because you want to experience it again. That's how good it is. And the saddest part about this movie, it probably won't even seek a home media release, and that's a damn shame. I would love to pick up Nimona on a wonderful Blu-ray, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I guess I'll have to hit the bootleg circuit. Number 6 is Barbie. A movie that has been in development hell for like years. Like, I remember when I was like 12 years old, and it was like 2009, I heard that they were actually going to make this, and they never did. You know, all kinds of, erased concepts and stuff that just didn't, stuff that fell through. And here we are in 2023, again, now 2024, and we finally get to experience Barbie. And boy, what a juggernaut that this movie ended up being. Barbie really works. I mean, I don't really have to talk about it. It works because the script is really creative and intelligible. It reminds me of films like Men in Black and like Shrek. And I'll tell you why. Because those are two movies where they were based on properties that really weren't like, that really aren't named. You know, like people didn't really know what Men in Black was, and people didn't really know what Shrek was, prior to those films. But it took, I mean, okay, well, people know what Barbie is, so maybe it's not. But I think why I bring those films up is because those movies, I felt when they hit the silver screen, the screenplays of them really stood out, and they subverted a lot of the expectations. Because Men in Black came out at a time when it's like, okay, well, the X-Files and stuff like, the X-Files was like big. So it kind of subverted the expectations, and it made fun of a lot of stuff like government agencies and stuff like that. And when Shrek, when it came out, it's like, okay, well, it's making fun of like Disney films and stuff. And here we got Barbie, and again, it's really subverting a lot of those expectations and a lot of the stuff we expected to see in a film like this. And it really did them. It really definitely subverted the expectations really well, I felt. Aside of that, it's an incredibly well-made film. It really has outstanding performances in it, and I'm really glad that America Fiara is getting a lot of attention, because I've always really admired her performances, like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants and stuff like that, but I'm really glad that she's finally getting some attention. Because like she's been in the game for a long time, stuff like Ugly Betty, and I used to watch that show Superstore she was on, and she's really funny in that. So she's really... and she was really good in it. She was my favorite thing about the film, and that speech that she gives in it, which, some people are very controversial, but I feel like that's the kind of thing that, it's not just that we have to hear, but again, I feel like, like the filmmakers, they kind of subvert the expectations, because films are afraid to have moments like that. And they're afraid to have moments where Barbie is sitting there on a bench, just staring at an old woman, or old woman staring at her. Just some subtle moments like that. Even stuff with, like, the stuff with Rhea Perlman in it. I feel like films, they're so afraid to dive into some emotional connection with these characters, and it did it so well. You know what I mean? Like, just having that emotional beat and connections, and again, not feeling forced, not feeling like we have to do it. Again, subverting the expectations, and that is something that I think is absolutely wonderful about Barbie, And I'm so glad, I've been kind of glad about this movie. I'm glad that this movie raises controversy. I'm glad people are mad about it. I'm glad people are happy about it. It's wonderful to experience something like Barbie. We needed Barbie. I feel like as society, we needed this movie. Okay? Like, I feel like this is the movie that, nobody asked for. Well, actually, people did ask for it, but we finally got it. And that's, to me, really impressive. Number 5 is Killers of the Flower Moon. Martin Scorsese has hit another home run once again. Outstanding film. Really just damn good Martin Scorsese movie. I mean, I don't know. The guy is just a force. He's like 80 years old. My favorite thing about this film, Lily Gladstone gives an outstanding performance. Her performance really, definitely, was definitely hair-raising for me. She really stands out in this film. I feel like her performance, like, really is what captivates and what is the central core of Killers of the Flower Moon, And I'm glad that, like, Martin Scorsese made a film like this, and he was able to approach it in the way that he was. Scorsese, he may, you may doubt Scorsese. You may look at Scorsese and be like, oh, well, he just bitches about Marvel movies and shit. But no, he really understands and encapsulates, cinema in ways that a lot of filmmakers out there, have lost. Because like some of those, I think Scorsese came from like the New Hollywood era, or like really was kind of striking out in the New Hollywood era. Like Taxi Driver, Mean Streets, and stuff like that. And a lot of those filmmakers that made films around that time have not been able to keep up, I feel. But here's Scorsese, and here he is with a film like this, and it still is. Sorry, let me get a drink of water. All right. And it still is very marvelous in how it's presented and how it's acted. It still is just a absolute force of a film. definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. And even at a 3-hour and 26-minute runtime, you're sitting there and you're just really wrapped up and invested into it, and it really just gets you. You know, Scorsese, like I said, Scorsese is really just a force. Number 4, Bottoms, a movie that is not on a lot of top 10 lists, and that's a damn shame. This is one of the funniest comedies I've seen in quite some time. And again, kind of like Barbie, subverting the expectations. Because this is you look at this poster and you're like, oh, this looks like a really silly comedy, and it is. But I was definitely surprised at the amount of dark humor and deprived humor that was in a film like this. I feel like if you like movies like Wet Hot American Summer, I think you'll definitely really get a kick out of Bottoms. I feel like Bottoms definitely will have a huge cult following in the future, and that'll definitely be the status of this film. There isn't a lot I really need to add towards it. Once you really understand the premise that it's a lesbian fight club, you either are with it or you're not with it. And I definitely was with it. This film definitely kept me entertained throughout. Love the 2 leads. Really glad to see them again. You know, Rachel Sennett was in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies from last year, and that was my introduction to her. And she definitely continues the funny train here in this one as well. And also the filmmaker is the same person. I think it's the same person who did Shiva Baby, which is another film that Rachel was in. And I really like Shiva Baby, so definitely I'm really glad to see, again, you know, these people moving forward and getting to make films like this, because we need some fresh voices out there, and I especially need some fresh comedy out there. And I really thank, you know, everybody involved in this for making a guy like me just laugh my ass off at how incredibly funny this was, in my opinion. Number 3, Across the Spider-Verse. One of the most exhilarating movies you'll ever see. Just exhilarating. And you know, the thing is like, I never thought that they were going to top the first one, but boy, I'd be damned. I love this movie. I love this movie more so than the first film. I love the story. I love the characters, the voice work, the animation is just, just really dazzling to look at. And it's not even just because the animation's like great. It's just that the amount of work that they do in this animation is just like impressive. And yes, I am aware of some of the controversy that the animations had. You know, like a lot of the people being subdued. I don't remember the term, but like a lot of the people had like these horrible working conditions. I am aware of a lot of that, and that is a shame that they did have to undergo a lot of that. I don't know. I'm not aware of how severe some of that was. But honestly, like in spite of that, I just couldn't get enough of the animation style in this. It's just so like wonderful to look at. And it's one of those things where like I feel like this is one of those movies where like they intentionally want to make it overbearing, and they intentionally want to just throw everything at the kitchen sink, but it's really crazy to see a lot of it work as good as it does, you know? Like, this movie's not just visual over substance. It still has a really good story, still has really good characters, and it's actually genuinely an animated movie that makes me laugh. And that's something that, you know, sometimes is rare to find, you know? Because animated movies have jokes in them, but, you know, sometimes the jokes don't even really hit all that much, you know? And some of the little touches to some of the humor, and some of the little things that they do, it's just so impressive. I mean, you only live once in a lifetime to experience something like Across the Spider-Verse. And I really can't wait for that third one, but boy, you can't rush art. Number 2, Past Lives. A movie I saw recently. I was definitely afraid of this movie being hyped up for me. I was sitting there like, oh boy, well, it's A24, so you know everybody's gonna love it, right? Because it's A24 and it's like a drama, and like that trailer I saw it and I was like, well, that means one of two things. It's either gonna be really weird or really sad. I'm sitting there watching it. I was stoned when I watched it, low key. I was high when I watched it, but boy, did this movie get to me in a way that I was not expecting it to get to me. This was such a just wonderful film to experience. The performances in this film, I mean, it's a very simplistic film in nature. The plot's pretty simplistic. But what really captivated me about this film it wasn't just the story, but it was just this romance you have with Greta Lee and her character, and just how, you know, she sort of like visually the film is able to captivate so much emotion in its cinematography and its performances. That ending where like Greta Lee just stares at this guy and like they're waiting for the Uber, just my God, it just hurt me. And the end of it's funny because I remember watching this movie and I remember I like took a break and I started thinking about a lot of it. And I really don't want to spoil anything about it, but like the ending didn't really hit me until after you really thought about it. And I was sitting there sobbing about it. I was just like, damn, like, I don't know, like, it just feels like that's just life, you know, and I'm just like, holy hell. And like, the thing is like, look, I haven't experienced anything like this, but just sitting there watching a film like this, and you know, you just see like these two characters or so, and just, you know, it just sort of hits you. And, you know, the movie doesn't ask for an emotional reaction for you. I feel like this movie, if you like, you know, the before and after, or the before trilogy, you know, the Richard Linklater films, you know, Before Sunset and After Sunset, if you like those films, I think you'll definitely really enjoy Past Lives. Or even if you like stuff like In the Mood for Love, I think you'll really find something to appreciate about Past Lives. It definitely hit me in a way that I was not expecting it to hit me. I sat down and watched it. I was like, well, it's just A24, you know, and of course it's going to be good somehow, some way, but it definitely really got to me in a way that I was just like, wow. And that's mostly led just to the direction and the performances. Just, again, really conveying a lot visually. The dialogue, a lot of it is simplistic too. And it's not that it's like a simple movie. It's a simple movie, but it's not basic. And there's a lot to it that it gives you, that it gave me when I watched it. And it's at least worth it just for that, you know, emotional connection I had with it, you know. And that definitely is definitely worth putting it on this list alone. All right, finally, we make it to the last movie on the list. Number 1, my favorite film of 2023, as of this moment, is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Now, I'm not that much familiar with the source material. You know, I've only seen the parodies of it, like the South Park episode where they parody it, and I think there was like a Simpsons episode where they actually parodied the source material. So going into it, I didn't really know what to expect, really. I'll be honest, I mostly saw it because of Rachel McAdams, and she was in it, and I've always really admired Rachel McAdams. I wanted to go see it, and I was definitely surprised at just how sweet and how delightful this movie was. It's a story about a girl going through sort of a weird period and sort of a weird phase, you know, like a brand new phase for her, you know, and you know, the performances are just outstanding from everybody, you know, and the actress in it, Abby Ryder Forston, is the young Cassie Lang that was in the first 2 Ant-Man films. In my opinion, the best Cassie Lang, and she is just marvelous in this. I mean, she really stands out and definitely conveys a lot of emotion. And again, it's a movie that that sort of just does its own thing. You know, it doesn't really ask anybody for any kind of emotional reaction towards it. You know, you sort of watch this film, and you sort of watch her, you know, coming accustomed to, like, you know, this new life and sort of coming accustomed to just growing up and becoming an adult. And the thing is, I wasn't, you know, really thinking like, oh, well, I would connect with this movie emotionally or really connect with it because it's about a girl, you know, it's about a female. But I really found myself invested into it because, like I said, the performances from everybody is just outstanding in it. I love her relationship with God and religion, and that was really what I related to the most. Like how she's like begging God, like, please let me have my period and stuff like that. And, you know, she's just asking God for all this stuff. And it's not that it's a religious film either, but it really did get to me on that level alone about how, like, you know, some of the questions they had about religion without being overly cynical or without being, you know, overly without being overly sappy with it. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that really worked about it. It wasn't an overly saccharine film. It didn't have those cheap, fake, like Hollywood cliches that you always see. It was just a genuinely sweet, like coming of age film. You know, and every once in a while there's like a coming of age film that, you know, really stands out. And listen, I'm a guy, I'm 26 years old. I don't, you know, again, I'm not the target demographic for this film. But I just, when I think about movies this year, right, and I think about the things that I sort of got from a lot of the films out there, is what I really, you know, got from this movie is that at the end of the day, I'm just trying another poster. It's the same color. Let's see. I'm just trying to flip through the posters. But what I really got from with this movie was just a all-around wholesome film. The kind of movies that Hollywood is afraid, like, I won't say afraid to make, but the kind of movies that, like, are just rare. When you see a movie that's just really sweet, it's not really overly negative, and it doesn't really, like again, it's not asking you as the audience to, like, really connect with it in a way, but you find yourself connecting with it. And that's the kind of movies that I really admire, are the films that you as the viewer feel like you're rewarded because the movie's rewarding you as you're sitting down and watching it. And that to me is 100% wonderful. This is an outstanding movie, and I think that, you know, regardless who you are, you definitely will find something to get out of this tell. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Definitely highly recommend it. My favorite film of 2023. All right. So I think that's going to wrap up the list, but I think there was one more movie I wanted to bring up. I'm going to see if I can try to pause the stream. If not, then I guess I can't. I'm going to have a hard time finding this movie, actually. Let me see. It did come out this year. Actually, I don't know if I'm able to find it here. Oh, hold on, go back. Because I did see it this year. I'm trying to find this movie. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it here or if I have to look somewhere else. You know what, let me try last year, because sometimes, you know, they put some of these movies in the wrong spot. I guess it's not here. All right, you know what? Go to IMDb, see if I know they have it. All right. There's one more movie I saw this year. It didn't get on my top 10, but it was really close to getting onto my top 10. I'm pretty sure if this video is still uploaded 10 years later, it'd be like, hey, The First Omen. It's like, and they just keep having to. There we go. Yes, sir. All right, so the one movie I forgot to bring up was Suzume. I saw this in the theater. Saw this again blindly. Didn't even see a single trailer for this movie. I was just kind of like, hey, it's an animated movie or an anime movie. You know, just sort of looked at the poster. The last anime movie I saw before this was Beau. And it's not from the same people. It's obviously from different people. And this was just an incredibly beautiful movie to look at. The animation in this movie is just gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous animation. And I really like the story in it a lot. And I love the side characters in it, like this cat here. Really love the animation on this cat. And you know, you look at this poster, and it's funny because I'm just thinking about the movie right now. I'm trying not to say a lot about it, but you think about this poster, you think about the little details. That chair is a big thing in this movie when just thinking about it right now, you know. But again, if you could find this movie, I don't know if it's on streaming anywhere. I actually paid over $100 to buy a 4K of it, because I wasn't even sure if this was even coming out to 4K here in the States. Just because I wanted to watch this again and experience it again. And it's just such a beautiful looking film. It is a really beautiful film with really gorgeous animation. And I did see it dubbed, because the version they had playing was the dub version. And the dub was actually really good too. The actress who plays Suzume in it was the same actress that played Cheyenne in Superstore. Really good voice work as far as the dub version goes. But yeah, other than that, I definitely really enjoyed Suzume. It's one of the best animated films of the year, and I'd be ashamed if this did not get a nomination for Best Animated Film this year. You know what I mean? Because I just have this ugly feeling that they're gonna, you know, not nominate this. But I don't know the regulations for this to get nominated. You know, it did play out in theaters here in the States, but I don't know if this, like, now IMDb counts this as a 2022 release, so I don't know if that means it's gonna get nominated or not. But if it doesn't, you know, it will be kind of disappointing, because I actually ended up really liking Suzume. Like I said, really gorgeous animation. Definitely check it out. Like I said, it apparently is streaming here on Crunchyroll, but I don't know if that's true or not. Sometimes they put that stuff there and you just never know. You just never know. Let's see here. But I think that's going to wrap up the stream here. Let me see here. I'm going to check some things real quick before I really close out the stream. Let me see if I can read some of the comments real quick. Because I've been streaming for like, I don't even know how long I've been streaming, man. I've just been streaming. Let's see. Actually, can I find the stream? I guess I can't. I guess not. Yes, not. Actually, am I still streaming? I don't know where the comments are. Let's see. Okay, I got 72 views right now. My chat rate is at 0. That's great. All right. Let's see. Because I was trying to find. Never mind. Well, I think I'm gonna call the stream. I think I'm gonna end the stream here tonight. Thank you all. You know, whoever out there. Thanks everybody for viewing the stream, watching the stream, sticking around. You know, catching the stream. I'm gonna leave this stream up. Definitely, I'm really glad to have done this. You know, just get some of this off my chest. I don't know if I'm gonna keep streaming. You know, later on down the week. If I have time, I'll see if I could try to stream some more. But you know, I've just been incredibly busy these last few months. So, anyways, thank you all for watching. Eat plenty of Krabby Patties.